A peaceful kingdom lies nestled in the valley, unaware of the lurking shadows preparing to strike. In the darkness, a ruthless predator sharpens his blade, thirsting for the blood of his next victim. With cold indifference, the monster sits over his fallen prey, a grim testament to the coming slaughter. The forest floor runs red with the blood of fallen warriors, a grim testament to the absolute brutality of the ambush. From the dark depths of the cavern, desperate screams of terror echo into the silent, unforgiving wilderness. A silent predator watches from the shadows, his cold gaze fixed on the carnage left in the wake of violence. With quiet resolve, the crimson-scarfed warrior prepares to step into the fray, ready to unleash his vengeance. A sinister grin cuts through the darkness, harboring a cruel malice that bodes ill for the captive. Bound and helpless, the captive woman trembles in fear, her silent pleas echoing in the cold, damp dark. Her identity is laid bare before her captors, revealing her origin from a prosperous world she may never see again. The bandits sneer as they realize the value of their prize, plotting their next cruel move. Bound and gagged, Jung Hae-in can only stare in terror as her captor whispers chilling words of false comfort. Her modern identity is held like a trophy, a useless relic in this unforgiving fantasy realm. The veteran survivors mock her shock, boasting of their survival in a world of monsters and magic. Surrounded by darkness, she realizes she is entirely at the mercy of those who came before her. A sickening grin accompanies a horrific threat, sealing her fate to a gruesome end if she dares to refuse. A gruesome trophy of violence hangs in the air, a grim testament to the absolute brutality of this world. Bound and silenced, the captive's desperate cries are swallowed by the suffocating darkness of her prison. Escaping the horror, her consciousness fades into the quiet mercy of the dark. The merciless captors scoff at her weakness, debating the cruelest ways to break her spirit. To them, she is nothing more than a rare prize, to be kept intact for their own sinister designs. In this lawless domain, beauty is merely a commodity to be preserved and exploited. They prepare to drag the unconscious girl deeper into the shadows. Bound and helpless, she remains at her captor's mercy. A sudden voice of disgust shatters the silence, drawing the sharp, suspicious glares of the bandits. Offended by the sudden defiance, the thugs confront their companion, their tempers flaring at the unexpected insult. He stands motionless, offering nothing but a cold, suffocating silence to their furious demands. In a single, breathless instant, the air grows heavy with the scent of impending violence. A swift, lethal strike silences him forever, leaving another lifeless body to rot in the damp darkness. Confusion turns to absolute panic as the remaining thugs realize their companion has fallen to an unexpected foe. A lethal blade spins through the air, caught effortlessly by a sinister, green-skinned hand. Terror grips the mercenaries as they stare into the shadows, realizing they are no longer the hunters. Emerging from the darkness, a menacing goblin warrior grins, ready to turn their cruel game into a bloodbath. With a savage cry, the monster lunges forward, unleashing a storm of steel upon his terrified prey. Chaos erupts as a sudden strike claims another mercenary, leaving his companion frozen in sheer disbelief. Bound and helpless, the captive woman looks up as her tormentors scream in sudden panic. Through tears of despair, a faint glimmer of hope reflects in her eyes. Blinded by rage, the remaining mercenaries charge forward to crush the monstrous intruder. Unshaken by their advance, the goblin tightens his grip upon the cold steel. A desperate blade descends, but the goblin's reflexes are far too swift. With lethal precision, the creature slips through the strike to deliver a devastating counterblow. With terrifying speed, the creature swings his crimson blade, sealing his foe's fate in a single motion. The glowing edge severs all resistance, leaving only ruin in its wake. Screams of agony echo through the cavern as another mercenary falls, gripped by absolute despair. Without warning, the creature attacks from the shadows. Panic spreads as the hunters become the hunted. Tears of terror stream down her face, witnessing the brutal slaughter unfolding before her. With a sadistic grin, the relentless predator lunges forward, eager to claim his remaining targets. A terrified warrior swings his blade in sheer desperation, screaming at the green beast to stay away. Blinded by pure terror, he raises his sword high, screaming for the nightmare to end. But the agile monster leaps effortlessly through the air, completely unfazed by the frantic swings. Before he can react, a brutal strike catches him off guard, choking the breath from his lungs. With deadly grace, the beast rebounds off the walls, preparing to deliver the final crushing blow. Crashing heavily to the cold ground, he stares up in absolute horror as the shadow of death looms over him. Tears well in the eyes of the young goblin, a silent plea hidden behind a mask of monstrous features. Terrified and cornered, the traveler desperately pleads for his life, offering food to the approaching beast. The helpless man tries to negotiate, putting on a false smile to appease the silent predator. But negotiation is futile as the creature leaps forward, its blade raised to strike without hesitation. With a sinister grin, the monster plunges its dagger deep, shattering any hope of mercy. Life fades from the victim's eyes, leaving only a cold, lifeless body in the dirt. The battle is over. Standing above his fallen foe, the young goblin quietly bears the weight of survival. A sudden sound breaks the silence, drawing his attention to an unexpected survivor. Bound and gagged, a terrified woman weeps, realizing her fate hangs in the balance. Remembering his grim task, the goblin slowly draws his blade once more. He approaches the helpless captive, his shadow looming over her trembling form. With a monstrous, terrifying grin, he prepares to silence the final witness. Terrified and trembling, the captive woman speaks, desperate to find a shred of humanity in her monstrous savior. With tears streaming down her face, she asks the impossible question, searching for a shared origin in this nightmare. The goblin scoffs at her hope, his monstrous form a cruel reminder of the harsh reality they now inhabit. Clinging to hope, she pleads with him, pointing to the undeniable clues of a shared past. Coldly dismissing her gratitude, the goblin denies any heroic intent, his heart hardened against sympathy. Desperate for answers in this chaotic new world, she begs for an explanation to make sense of the madness. The grim reality of their situation lies scattered around them, a brutal testament to the violence of this world. With bitter resentment, he reveals the harsh truth of their sudden, cruel displacement into this unforgiving realm. The monster stares down coldly, his eyes devoid of any sympathy for her plight. On her knees, she weeps, begging for some semblance of sanity in this twisted nightmare. A cruel, jagged grin spreads across the creature's face as he prepares to shatter her remaining illusions. Leaning in close, he whispers a chilling truth, urging her to open her eyes to the reality before them. He questions her sight, demanding to know if she can perceive the sinister trials of this new world. An abrupt realization strikes her, her tear-filled eyes widening in sudden, gripping terror. The glowing interface emerges before her eyes, binding her to a merciless fate. With a mocking laugh, the goblin urges her to struggle, pointing her toward a path of brutal survival. Despair grips her as the merciless creature turns to leave, abandoning her to the dark. With tears streaming down her face, she desperately reaches out, begging for answers in this cruel world. The monster finally snaps, his eyes burning with fury. In one swift, violent motion, the blade flashes, shattering her fragile hope. The cold steel of death rests against her throat, freezing her very soul in terror. With a blood-stained blade in hand, the beast roars, declaring himself the ultimate terror of this realm. Leaning close, he whispers a chilling promise of slaughter, leaving her life hanging by a mere whim. Her desperate cries echo through the darkness as the cold blade presses against her throat, sealing her grim fate. Haunted by her final plea, the warrior stands frozen, his heart torn between merciless duty and sudden, crushing guilt. Under a tempest of relentless rain, the battlefield falls silent, leaving only the broken remains of shattered hopes. He cradles her lifeless form, his tears blending with the torrential downpour as despair consumes his soul. As her breath fades forever, a silent shadow approaches, leaving nothing but grief in the wake of tragedy. A young warrior stares in disbelief, his world shattered as the cold reality of betrayal sinks in. The holy sword Ha Yuri steps out of the rain, her icy eyes show not a trace of sympathy. Clinging to his fallen companion, the young warrior weeps, begging for the promised salvation that never came. His grief transforms into a desperate, roaring scream against the uncaring heavens. Deeming their sacrifice noble yet calling them traitors, Ha Yuri unsheathes her blade to deliver a merciless end. She raises her blade without hesitation. One strike will silence the last witness forever. A desperate cry of agony echoes through the rain as the warrior is pierced through by the very sword he trusted. Blood and tears mingle in the cold downpour, the cruel steel silencing his final plea. Standing over the fallen, the cold-hearted commander dismisses their lives as nothing more than a traitorous whisper. As life fades away, hatred consumes him. With his final breath, he curses all of humanity. Faced with the abyss of death, a desperate soul screams out, willing to pay any price for vengeance. In the shadows, a grotesque fiend emerges, ready to claim its prize from the fallen. Despair grips her as the monster tightens its hold, demanding to know the reason behind this cruelty. Hatred for humanity spills from his lips. With a twisted laugh, he embraces the monster he's become. He casts aside his humanity without regret. In the shadows, his monstrous rebirth begins. A primal roar tears through the silence as a monstrous entity emerges from the dark depths. Confused and disoriented, the newly reborn creature stares at its hands, questioning its sudden resurrection. Desperation grips his soul as he searches for the one he lost in his previous life. Beholding his unfamiliar, monstrous form, horror washes over him in this strange new world. Beneath his feet, a glowing summoning circle pulses with ancient, forbidden magic. As the terrifying reality sets in, panic and disbelief consume his mind. Staring at his monstrous reflection, he realizes the nightmare has become his reality. An ancient, horned shaman emerges from the shadows, declaring that the human blood has finally perished. Stunned by the shaman's words, the creature struggles to comprehend his grim new reality. The towering figure reveals himself as Morkzul, the legendary shaman of the warrior tribe. Bestowing a dark blessing, the shaman initiates the reborn soul into the ranks of the Goblin tribe. Glowing energy surges through his veins as the ritual to grant him a new name begins. With a booming voice, the shaman pronounces his new name, marking his rebirth. Whispering his new name, he accepts his fate. The last trace of his humanity fades away. Blood stains the earth as a ruthless strike claims another victim with lethal precision. Impressed by the brutal efficiency, Mev recognizes the unmistakable handiwork of her chosen warrior. Ordering her kin to halt, she prepares to seek out the one who left this trail of carnage. With absolute resolve, Mev sets forth to find Gorals, leaving her warriors behind. Deep within the shadows, a cold warning echoes, urging them to flee before mercy turns to malice. Desperate to escape her grim fate, the girl reaches out to the one who saved her, pleading not to be left behind. She begs to follow him into the unknown, promising absolute obedience if only he will let her stay by his side. Dumbfounded by her plea, the goblin questions why she would trust a creature who just slaughtered men before her eyes. She points to the cold corpses of her betrayers, declaring that the true monsters are those who wear human skin. Tears streaming down her face, she cries out in desperation, claiming he is the only one left she can trust. With a sharp flick to her forehead, the goblin snaps her back to reality, refusing to play the hero. The goblin harshly rebukes her, warning that blind trust in this cruel world is a direct path to ruin. With fierce intensity, he demands she understand that in this desolate place, trust is a fatal illusion. Yet a sliver of hope remains as he reveals the existence of survivor camps scattered across this harsh land. He tells her that among other survivors, she might find someone far more deserving of her faith than himself. He offers her a weapon, a cold piece of steel to ensure her survival in the trials ahead. He warns her of the grim reality of survival, where every alliance demands a steep and often bloody price. He instructs her to hide the blade, reminding her that even the weakest can strike a lethal blow if pushed to the brink. With a cold threat hanging in the air, the warrior turns to leave, cutting all ties of mercy. Desperate for a thread of connection, she begs to know the identity of her savior. A heavy silence falls as he hesitates, the weight of his past lingering in the shadows. A new identity takes shape. The warrior known as Gorls is finally born. As the woman flees, doubts arise from his kin, questioning his sudden mercy toward their sworn enemies. A familiar shadow emerges from the darkness, questioning the warrior's unexpected presence. Mev, a deadly archer of the Dark Moon clan, eyes the warrior with a mixture of curiosity and jealousy. To Gorls, slaying weak prey offers no glory, only a tedious waste of effort. Her admiration overflows, claiming him as her own, much to his silent exasperation. But his desire for vengeance runs far deeper than a mere quest for strength, fueled by a dark, unspoken history. Mev questions his resolve, sensing a dark, unyielding purpose behind his cold demeanor. A burning hatred consumes Gorls as he vows to destroy those who stole his entire world. Startled by the sheer depth of his malice, Mev stands frozen in silent awe. Memories of his human past resurface. Stripped of his humanity, he lives for nothing but vengeance. With nothing left to lose, the resurrected warrior marches forward into the dark abyss. A suffocating pressure descends as Mev gazes up, paralyzed by a sudden, terrifying shift in the air. In the quiet stillness, she witnesses a dark resolve that defies all comprehension. A monstrous wrath manifests from the abyss, fueled by an ancient, unyielding oath of destruction. With eyes burning like dying stars, the promise of total retribution leaves her utterly shattered. Reeling from the sheer force of his malice, Mev collapses as the ground itself seems to tremble. As the dust settles, a lingering dread hangs over them, marking the beginning of an inevitable doom. Sensing the overwhelming dread, Mev trembles in fear, pleading to understand the sudden darkness consuming Gorls. With a heavy heart, Gorls commands her to gather their kin, preparing for the ritual that lies ahead. Eager to please her companion, Mev rallies the tribe, her voice echoing with newfound authority. Standing atop the rugged precipice, Gorls gazes into the vast horizon, carrying the weight of his destiny. The winds of fate howl around him as he senses a dark presence lurking in the distance. With cold resolve, he steels his gaze, ready to face whatever shadows await. Terror grips the escaping human as she desperately flees through the rugged forest, her heart pounding with the dread of pursuit. Gorls summons his quest interface, calculating his next move as he stands on the cusp of a grim milestone. Just one more human hunt remains before he can unlock the ultimate evolution into a formidable goblin warrior. Feeling the surge of his current battle form, Gorls knows that absolute strength is within his grasp. A sudden shout breaks his concentration, pulling his focus back to the reality of their precarious situation. Mev eagerly approaches with the salvaged spoils, her eyes bright with anticipation for their next move. But there is no time to celebrate, as Gorls warns that the survivors will soon return with reinforcements. A dark resolve ignites within the goblin hunter, turning the forest itself into a grim sanctuary of impending doom. Deep within the rugged mountains, a hidden cavern mouth stands silent, harboring secrets of the goblin tribe. A heavy chest hits the ground, breaking the silence. Mev can't hide her proud smile. Gorls approaches with stern warning, reminding his companion that caution is their only shield. A sudden shout echoes through the cavern, shattering the silence as the tribe greets their unexpected savior. With unwavering loyalty, the scarred goblin swears obedience. Deep below, the tunnels become a deadly fortress. Gorls rejects the mantle of leadership, refusing to bear the heavy burden of their blind loyalty. But the flames of rebellion cannot be quenched, as the tribe rallies behind the one who proved his lethal might. With unwavering conviction, the goblin declares the arrival of their new savior. With roaring voices, the goblin tribe unites, declaring Gorls as their undisputed boss. Mev steps forward, claiming her place beside Gorls as his devoted companion in the coming war. The celebration is cut short as a scout brings grim news of approaching human forces. Gorls commands his tribe to retreat and hide, preparing to face the oncoming threat alone. Turning to his loyal archer, Gorls calls upon Mev to stand by his side in the impending clash. With burning devotion, Mev draws her bow, ready to rain down lethal arrows upon their enemies. A sinister grin spreads across Gorls' face as the battle begins, his thirst for blood fully ignited. A grim trail of carnage halts the mercenaries, exposing the brutal aftermath of a silent slaughter. Disbelief turns to cold fury as the commander demands the truth of this impossible devastation. Wrath erupts as the leader refuses to believe a mere beast could decimate his entire vanguard. But the haunting memory of the goblin's savage fury leaves the survivor trembling in absolute terror. Disgusted by cowardice, the ruthless commander sneers at his trembling subordinate. A brutal strike sends the terrified survivor crashing into the dirt. With cold authority, the commander orders his men to hunt the beast down. The mercenary army rallies, marching toward the dark abyss to capture their prey. A sudden, lethal strike pierces the vanguard, silencing his command before it can even echo. Terror grips the mercenary ranks as their comrade collapses, a silent warning of the unseen hunter. Confusion turns to panic as the leader realizes they are no longer the hunters, but the prey. Spotting the elusive threat, a desperate soldier points toward the dark ruins where the enemy waits. With cold precision, Mev draws her bow, ready to unleash another lethal storm upon the invaders. A sudden, silent arrow pierces the mercenaries' flesh, shattering their fragile confidence in an instant. Chaos erupts among the human ranks as their vanguard falls, exposing their vulnerability to the hidden hunter. From the shadows, Mev watches their panic with a cold, mocking gaze, amused by their foolishness. With swift, silent grace, the goblin archer vanishes back into the darkness, leaving only confusion in her wake. Fury consumes the human commander as he desperately orders his men to hunt down the elusive shadow. The furious human mercenaries charge blindly into the dark depths, desperate to hunt down their elusive target. With effortless grace, Mev glides through the shadows, leading her pursuers deeper into a deadly trap. She leaps effortlessly into the abyss, her agile movements leaving the clumsy humans far behind. Deep into the winding caverns they run, completely unaware of the grim fate awaiting them. Consumed by rage, the hunters rush forward without caution. One wrong step triggers the hidden alarms. With the trap sprung, Mev quickly reports the intrusion to her commander, eager to execute their escape. Gorls commands a swift retreat, leaving the baffled humans to wander empty, silent tunnels. The mercenaries realize too late that their prey has vanished into the shadows, leaving only mockery behind. Humiliated and outsmarted by mere goblins, the mercenary leader seethes in silent, bitter defeat. The human mercenaries press forward, their heavy footsteps echoing through the dark, narrow tunnels. A sudden spark ignites the shadows, triggering a hidden trap left by the cunning goblin. Confusion grips the invaders as the trap springs, catching them completely off guard. The mercenary leader stares at the collapsed rubble, mockingly questioning the goblin's simple obstacle. Upon closer inspection, he realizes the beast possesses a tactical mind far superior to his own men. But a sudden, chilling realization freezes him in his tracks as the true trap is revealed. Deep within the lightless caverns, a mercenary uncovers a hidden secret buried beneath the cold stone. The dust clears to reveal a deadly cache of blasting powder, wired to ignite at any moment. Realizing the imminent danger, the scout frantically warns his commander of the impending catastrophe. With wide eyes of sheer terror, the commander bellows a desperate order to flee the doomed tunnel. But salvation is already out of reach as a blinding spark ignites the darkness. A blinding inferno erupts, consuming everything in its path with merciless fury. Flesh and bone disintegrate as the devastating blast leaves no hope of survival. The mountain itself trembles as the violent shockwave tears through the cavern entrance. Blown back by the sheer force, the human scouts are helplessly scattered like autumn leaves. Clinging to the remnants of his life, a lone survivor coughs through the choking ash, consumed by bitter rage. The devastating shockwave leaves the lone survivor broken amidst the falling debris, his eyes wide with terror. Mev stares in absolute awe as the colossal blast echoes through the valley, painting the sky in ash. Anxious for her companion, Mev turns to Gorls, her voice trembling in the wake of the destructive power. A blinding pillar of celestial light descends, engulfing the warrior in a violent storm of ancient magic. The bloody trial is finally complete, unlocking the path to a terrifying new evolution. Agonizing pain consumes him. From the ashes of his former self, Gorls is finally reborn. With a dark, menacing breath, the newly reborn monster prepares to unleash absolute ruin. An intoxicating power surges through Gorls, cementing his dark evolution into an unstoppable force. Amidst the carnage, the desperate cries of the fallen echo through the ruined forest. Left behind by his foolish comrades, a lone survivor bitterly watches the devastation unfold. But his relief turns to absolute horror as a terrifying silhouette emerges from the ashes. Gorls towers over his prey, a sadistic grin carving across his monstrous face as he savors the hunt. With lethal intent, a blade is drawn, its cold steel gleaming under the dim forest canopy. Terror grips the helpless survivor as the shadow of death looms directly over him. In a flash of violence, the cold edge of steel is pressed hard against his throat. Gorls delivers a chilling ultimatum, offering a choice between absolute compliance or becoming a beast's feast. Gazing upon the familiar emblem, the warrior feels the heavy pull of memories long buried. High atop the watchtower, he looks out over the valley where his journey once began. Below, the survivor camp remains unchanged, a grim monument to those summoned to this endless struggle. With the map of the human territory laid bare, Gorls plots a cunning strategy that turns adversity into opportunity. Before launching their final assault, they must return to the shaman Morkzul to report their hard-won triumphs. A grim determination burns in Gorls' eyes as he prepares to rearm his warriors for the inevitable slaughter. But their captive human dares to speak, desperately pleading for a mercy that the monstrous horde has long forgotten. Desperate to survive, the captive human reveals the location of his own kin, trading their lives for his. True to his word, Gorls grants the traitor his freedom, a rare mercy in this unforgiving world. Disbelief washes over the captive as the promise of life is unexpectedly handed back to him. With arrogance returning, the human sneers at the surrounding horde, believing himself safe from their wrath. Blinded by his own pride, he mocks the beasts, completely unaware of the grim reality of his situation. But mercy in the dark forest is a fleeting illusion, and the shadows are always hungry. A sharp blade pierces flesh, shattering the fragile illusion of mercy with a single, brutal strike. Screams of terror are choked into silence as cold, monstrous hands seal his fate. The ravenous horde descends, tearing their prey apart in a relentless storm of violence. Gorls watches coldly, reminding us that in this savage land, a monster's promise is a deadly trap. A soul is dragged into the dark abyss, gasping for breath as the cold grip of death takes hold. Shaman Morkzul questions the audacious request, his ancient eyes piercing through the warrior's bold ambition. With meticulous detail, Gorls presents his strategic intelligence, proving his readiness for the ultimate strike. A cold resolve burns in his eyes as he declares their path to an absolute, crushing victory. A heavy silence hangs in the air as Morkzul contemplates the dangerous proposal brought before him. A fierce protest erupts, demanding the shaman reject the reckless request before it brings ruin. Unfazed by the growing dissent, the warrior looks back, waiting for the elder's final judgment. With burning conviction, the dissenter warns of the great chief's impending call to war. Hobgoblin Goff demands preparation, urging the clan to hoard their strength for the great chief's impending march. The elder shaman hesitates, finding no righteous cause to deny Gorls his rightful path. Goff fiercely objects, refusing to waste precious warriors and resources on an unproven newcomer. Gorls steps from the shadows, boldly challenging the arrogant warrior. A sinister smirk betrays the deadly intent hidden behind his cold eyes. Provoked by the mockery, the massive warrior seethes with rising indignation. With a thunderous declaration, the giant steps forward to cement his dominance. Amidst the mounting tension, Mev bursts into the cavern searching for her champion. Goff demands a duel of honor, challenging Gorls to a clash of sheer dominance. Horror grips Mev as she witnesses the sudden escalation of violence. Gorls accepts the challenge, imposing a ruthless condition that demands absolute submission from the loser. Mev gasps in disbelief at the sheer madness of the high-stakes wager. Shaman Morkzul approves the duel without hesitation. Desperate, Mev begs her grandfather to stop it. The arena roars with bloodlust as the crowd gathers to witness a clash of pure dominance. The crowd chants in anticipation, eager to see a legend fall. With cold, unyielding resolve, the champion prepares to defend his absolute authority. Panic erupts among the tribe as they realize the fatal stakes of this sudden confrontation. With the challenge accepted, there is no turning back from the path of blood. Shaman Morkzul steps forward, declaring the ancient rules of a brutal duel where neither magic nor weapons are permitted. Whispers of doubt echo through the crowd as they fear Goff's ruthless temper will leave Gorls broken and lifeless. With a deafening roar that shakes the heavens, the shaman signals the start of the ultimate clash for survival. Goff unleashes a deafening roar, his colossal frame radiating a terrifying aura of pure, unbridled malice. With earth-shattering strides, the giant charges forward, determined to crush the newly evolved warrior beneath his weight. Unleashing a devastating strike, Goff aims to shatter his opponent's bones and end the duel in a single blow. But Gorls remains entirely unfazed, effortlessly dodging the colossal fist with cold, calculating precision. Gorls delivers a devastating low blow, striking the giant where it hurts most with ruthless efficiency. Paralyzed by agonizing pain, the colossal warrior collapses to his knees, his immense strength instantly shattered. Seizing the opening, Gorl strikes with lethal speed, driving a crushing blow straight into his opponent's skull. With a deafening crash, the giant falls, completely neutralized by the newly evolved warrior's overwhelming dominance. A stunned silence falls over the arena as the goblin crowd watches in absolute disbelief. Bruised and beaten, the proud warrior Goff refuses to let his spirit be broken. The crowd roars for their champion, desperate to see him rise once more. Gorls offers one final chance to yield, but mercy is a luxury he cannot afford. With ruthless precision, Gorls locks in a devastating chokehold to end the rebellion. Gasping for air, the giant's resistance fades as the terrifying power of the new boss takes hold. The giant collapses, his consciousness fading into the cold shadows of defeat. The mighty warrior falls, his formidable strength shattered by a superior foe. Standing tall over his fallen opponent, Gorls claims his undisputed victory with absolute calm. Roars of triumph erupt from the arena as the tribe celebrates their legendary new champion. The ancient shaman steps forward, officially declaring the dawn of a new era under the victor's rule. Gorls offers his respect to Lord Morkzul, the ancient shaman who witnessed his brutal triumph in the arena. A sudden shout pierces the quiet arena, pulling Gorls back from his thoughts of victory. Overjoyed by his survival, Mev throws herself upon her champion, celebrating his impossible conquest. The tribe gathers in awe, praising the warrior who shattered all doubts by defeating the mighty Goff. Mev boldly declares her passionate intent to mate with Gorls before the day ends, leaving the stoic warrior completely speechless. A deep voice echoes through the cavern, drawing Gorls' attention back to the elders of the tribe. Lord Morkzul stands proud, his ancient eyes recognizing the true potential of the newly evolved champion. Gripping his staff with unyielding force, the shaman prepares to unleash the sacred power of their ancestors. With a resounding strike, a brilliant surge of mystical energy ignites the dark cavern. Ancient power surges as Lord Morkzul tears open the fabric of space, summoning a swirling vortex of blue flame. Mev stares in absolute disbelief as the legendary shaman demonstrates the rare and forbidden art of portal magic. With a solemn command, the shaman beckons Gorls to follow him into the unknown to meet a mysterious figure. Gorls steps forward without hesitation, crossing the threshold of the portal alongside his guide while the tribe watches in silence. The spatial rift stabilizes within the ancient halls. Moments later, the blue vortex tears open the worlds. A heavy footstep echoes across the polished tiles as the travelers finally cross the threshold. Lord Morkzul emerges from the shimmering light, leading Gorals into the heart of unfamiliar territory. Before them, a second golden gateway ignites, pulsing with a blinding and majestic energy. Stepping through the celestial flame, they prepare to face the supreme authority of this domain. Goral stands frozen in disbelief as an unexpected presence breaches the sacred sanctuary. Emerging from the golden light, Rumpelstiltskin smiles with dangerous warmth, greeting the ancient shaman. Goral stares in silent disbelief, questioning the true nature of this rare and mysterious entity. Taking her seat with poise, Rumpelstiltskin addresses the warrior, knowing exactly what deadly tools he seeks. With a cold gaze, she warns that power is never granted freely, demanding a steep price for her legendary weapons. Before granting her legendary weapons, Rumpelstiltskin demands to hear the warrior's tale. Gorals quietly takes his seat. Across the table, neither side breaks the heavy silence. With a heavy breath, Gorals prepares to recount his journey from humanity to monstrosity. His human life ended the day Gorals was born. With quiet resolve, he finishes recounting his bloody past. A heavy silence fills the chamber as his eccentric host struggles to contain her sudden amusement. With a thunderous strike, the fragile silence is shattered by her explosive reaction. Rumpelstiltskin erupts into wild laughter, thoroughly entertained by the warrior's dark and tragic tale. With a sharp snap of her fingers, she prepares to deliver her promised reward. Golden light reveals the ancient treasures. From her throne, the mysterious collector quietly studies Gorals. A wicked amusement dances in Rumpelstiltskin's eyes as she contemplates the grand saga unfolding before her. With a theatrical gesture, she revels in the chaotic beauty of a tale that stirs her ancient soul. Gorals watches in silent caution as the eccentric host erupts with unbridled, unpredictable ecstasy. Thrilled by the promise of blood and vengeance, Rumpelstiltskin rejoices in the savage symphony of his destiny. Gorals seethes with silent irritation, questioning the maddening whims of the eccentric host. Demanding his armaments, the warrior seeks the tools necessary to carve his path of vengeance. A sudden burst of manic laughter erupts from Rumpelstiltskin, delighted by the warrior's urgent demand. With a swift, agile leap, Rumpelstiltskin retreats to prepare a grand offering for her champion. Leaning close with intense devotion, Rumpelstiltskin promises a sacred vessel as her ultimate gift. A mysterious invitation breaks the silence, beckoning the warrior deeper into the secrets of the ancient clan. A searing gateway of golden fire erupts, tearing open the threshold to an unseen realm. Within the grand archives, a dark tale of betrayal brings a sinister smile to a waiting keeper. Heavy footsteps echo through the sacred halls, signaling the arrival of an unstoppable force. Out of the shadows steps the legendary leader, his cold gaze carrying the weight of 1,000 battles. Rumpelstiltskin smiles with dark satisfaction, acknowledging that Gorals finally commands the presence of a true clan master. Clad in new armor, Gorals stands ready for war. Power surges through him as he clenches his fist. Rumpelstiltskin cannot contain her excitement as she admires the warrior's magnificent transformation. Standing together on the sacred grounds, the clan prepares to witness the strategic genius of their new leader. With a sharp gaze, Rumpelstiltskin prepares to explain the ancient gifts bestowed upon her chosen champion. As the echoes of the duel fade, Gorals stands in silent contemplation, the heavy weight of his next move pressing upon him. Far across the valley, the banner of the survivor camp flutters against the sky, a beacon of fragile hope in a cruel world. Sensing a shift in the wind, the warrior turns his gaze toward the horizon, his sharp instincts detecting an approaching storm. Standing atop the rugged precipice, the new boss looks down upon his loyal tribe as they chant his name in absolute devotion. Gripping his blade with unyielding force, Gorals prepares to lead his monstrous horde to absolute bloody victory. With a savage roar, Gorals draws his blade, commanding his monstrous horde to begin the hunt. The ravenous goblin army charges forward, their thunderous footsteps shaking the very earth. Deep within the human territory, the banner of the survivor camp flutters under a tense sky. A frantic scout rushes to sound the alarm, completely unaware of the impending doom. Panic erupts within the human outpost as a frantic scout delivers a warning of an impending assault. The scout trembles in absolute terror, uttering the name of the monstrous invaders. Disbelief freezes the squad leader as he struggles to comprehend the sheer absurdity of the threat. Before they can steel their defenses, a relentless tide of green monsters descends upon the human camp. As the battle rages, Rumpelstiltskin presents Gorls with a dark, unprecedented power. A sinister gift that will bind the life force of his entire clan to his own insatiable hunger. With every drop of blood spilled by his warriors, the system registers their lethal strikes as his own. An endless stream of notifications floods his vision, fueling his rapid ascent to absolute dominance. But the Dark Mistress is not finished, teasing an even greater power to cement his reign. With a single gesture, the pact is sealed, unleashing an era of unparalleled slaughter. In the sacred hall, Gorls summons the legendary interface, a glowing testament to his rising power. The realization of this newfound system leaves the warrior momentarily stunned by its boundless potential. Rumpelstiltskin reveals the ultimate freedom of the system, unshackled by the constraints of time or space. A single gesture awakens ancient magic. Beneath the open sky, Gorls begins his new destiny. A savage ambush shatters the silence as a ravenous goblin leaps from above, club raised to strike. Steel clashes against wood as the warrior barely deflects the bone-crushing blow. With a swift, decisive counterattack, the human defenders carve through the monstrous horde. A severed head rolls onto the bloody grass, a grim testament to the brutal clash. The commander bellows in fury, demanding his panicked men steel themselves against the pathetic beasts. Overconfident and blind to the true danger, the human commander rallies his men to slaughter the beasts. In a flash of lethal precision, a sudden spear pierces his skull, silencing his arrogance instantly. Emerging from the shadows, the formidable goblin warrior looks down upon his prey with cold, unyielding contempt. Panic erupts among the human ranks as their leader collapses into the dirt, dead before the battle even begins. Terror spreads through the remaining soldiers, their commander has fallen to a mere goblin. Terror spreads like wildfire through the ranks as the terrified mercenaries break formation and flee for their lives. In absolute panic, the survivors scream for retreat, desperately trying to escape the nightmare unfolding behind them. Watching the pathetic retreat from the shadows, the cunning goblin warriors mock the absolute foolishness of their prey. The goblin horde erupts in wild celebration, praising their new leader for a ruthless victory over the fleeing humans. Amidst the deafening cheers, Gorls remains silent, his cold gaze fixed on the dark path ahead. Rumpelstiltskin steps forward with a mischievous grin, questioning if their legendary leader has chosen a name for their rising clan. The concept of a clan name hangs heavily in the air, forcing Gorls to reflect on their grim future. A brutal memory of violence flashes back, reminding them of the merciless bloodshed that forged their path. The cold steel drips with fresh blood, cementing a legacy written in the slaughter of their enemies. Standing tall beneath the open sky, Gorls commends his green-skinned brothers for their brilliant display of strength. Before the assembled horde, the warrior declares their rebirth under the proud banner of the Dark Moon clan. No longer hiding in the shadows, Mev stands proud as their historic triumph over humanity is sealed. With heads held high, the once-oppressed tribe gazes toward a future of absolute dominance. Raising his blade to the heavens, Gorls vows to seize endless victories and crush all who stand in their way. With a roaring battle cry, Gorls rallies his green-skinned brothers to unite under a singular, terrifying banner of war. No longer mere prey, they declare themselves to the heavens as the formidable Blood Dagger clan. A thunderous roar echoes across the valley, signaling the rise of a deadly new fortress. The eccentric collector savors the name, finding a dark beauty in its violent promise. Curiosity burns within her as she seeks the hidden meaning behind his chosen title. A grim shadow falls over the warrior as memories of his first violent act resurface. He recalls his first kill the moment his bloody path began. The revelation only deepens her fascination. Wary of her sudden generosity, Gorls demands to know the true price of her alliance. With a mysterious smile, she reveals her only desire, to witness a legendary tale unfold. The eccentric collector lounges with effortless grace, captivated by the dark allure of tragic tales. With a knowing smile, she reveals her deep fascination with the warrior's journey. Gorls stands silently, his grim gaze reflecting a lifetime of buried torment. She points with dramatic flair, exposing the raw despair hidden beneath his monstrous exterior. A tense silence fills the chamber as the collector demands to see how his grand saga concludes. Accepting the alliance, Gorls offers his grim gratitude, knowing his path is now clear. She laughs off his gratitude, revealing the true motive behind her generosity. Gorls finally sees her real intentions. With a playful salute, she honors the rise of the new leader, heralding a dark age under Clan Master Gorls. Deep within the human territories, the fortress of the 13th Guard Unit stands as a fragile shield against the wild. A grim warning circulates through the human ranks, urging them to fortify their defenses against the sudden surge of goblin raids. But arrogance blinds the defenders, who mock the sudden panic and refuse to fear a mere beast. With fierce pride, Lee Sang-jun scoffs at the warnings, completely unaware of the monstrous doom marching toward them. A chilling warning speaks of an organized monster army. The skeptical commander refuses to believe it. The commander crushes the reports, dismissing the phantom threat as nothing but fear. Anger boils over as he strikes his subordinate, refusing to believe that mindless beasts could operate with such tactical precision. When confronted with the grim news of a wiped-out survivor camp, the arrogant leader sneers at the weakness of his fallen peers. Blinded by ambition, Lee Sang-jun views this impending slaughter not as a threat, but as his ultimate stepping stone to glory. With a mixture of dread and curiosity, the subordinate questions his commander's next move. Staring down at the discarded warnings, Lee Sang-jun vows to completely annihilate the monstrous horde. In the damp shadows of captivity, only putrid rot is offered to sustain a broken spirit. Jang Ha-yeon huddles in the cold darkness, refusing to touch the poisoned filth before her. A cruel tormentor sneers through the iron bars, mocking her silent defiance. But her spirit remains unbroken as she spits venom back at her despicable captors. The guard feigns shock, masking his malice behind a sinister, mocking smile. With a venomous insult directed at her mother, he strikes at her deepest, most painful wound. Her defiance shatters his composure, unleashing an explosion of pure, unbridled fury. Locked behind cold iron, the captor sneers at Jang Ha-yeon, reminding her of her absolute helplessness in this dark abyss. Rage consumes the guard as he demands to know where she found the courage to draw a blade against them. Jang Ha-yeon remains silent, her head bowed as she endures the relentless torrent of abuse. Her silence only fuels his disgust, provoking a venomous sneer from the frustrated tormentor. With a sinister laugh, the guard stands tall, reveling in his absolute authority over the helpless captive. He vows to break her spirit completely, promising to show her the grim reality of her worth. A horrific fate is sealed as the guard orders her to be thrown to the merciless goblin hunters. Locked behind cold bars, the captor sneers, sealing her grim fate as bait for the ravenous horde. Under the cold glow of a crescent moon, Jang Ha-yeon is bound to a post, waiting in the silent dark. Gagged and helpless, she faces the terrifying reality of her role as live bait in a deadly game. Heavy footsteps echo through the desolate forest as the trap is set, drawing unseen predators closer. From the shadows, the hunters watch in tense silence, questioning if their obvious bait will lure the ultimate beast. Doubt whispers in the dark as they wonder if this desperate gambit will truly succeed. With a grim sneer, the elder assures him that the trap is set, and the gold will lure their prey. Watching from the brush, they marvel at how easily greed blinds even the most savage beasts. Yet the lingering dread remains, a silent question hanging heavily in the cold night air. With absolute certainty, the master of the hunt declares that every piece of their trap is perfectly aligned. As predicted, a wretched creature emerges from the shadows, drawn by the glittering promise of gold. But the true lure is the enchanted maiden, bound and helpless, an irresistible feast left out in the open. Hidden in the brush, the mercenaries mock their prey, unaware of the lurking danger. Whispering in the dark, they dream of spoils, blind to the trap closing in around them. With cold, scarred eyes, the veteran commander demands focus, sensing the shifting winds of battle. Anxiety ripples through the ranks as a heavy silence falls over the dark forest. Hours bleed into the night until a glittering lure finally catches the moonlight. Drawn by irresistible greed, a wretched creature takes the bait, completely unaware of the trap. From the shadows, the hunters prepare to strike as their prey takes the final, fatal step. Drawn by the glittering trail of gold, the greedy goblins eagerly gather the scattered coins, completely blind to the trap. A sudden realization halts the scout, sensing an unnatural presence lurking just beyond the dark trees. Through the thick darkness, his eyes lock onto a bizarre sight that defies all expectations. Bound and gagged against the cold wood, the helpless maiden trembles in silent, desperate agony. Stunned by her bizarre predicament, the goblin can only marvel at the sheer absurdity of her capture. Cautiously, the monstrous search party closes in on the defenseless captive, their whispers filled with suspicion. Sensing a shadow looming over her, she looks up through her tears to face her ultimate destiny. Goral stares down in utter disbelief, questioning the bizarre motives of the girl who seems strangely at home in her bonds. Bound in silence, her desperate tears reflect the cold terror of a world where mercy is nothing but a distant memory. Hidden in the shadows, cold hands prepare their lethal instruments, ready to spring a deadly trap upon the unsuspecting beasts. With cold precision, the hunters lock their sights onto the target, whispering ruthless commands to capture their prey alive. Panic consumes the helpless captive as a familiar face emerges from the gloom, desperately pleading for silence before the trap is sprung. A desperate whisper breaks through the terror, revealing a shocking ally amidst the looming shadows of the dark forest. Desperate tears stream down Jang Hayeon's face as she screams a frantic warning of the deadly trap. With absolute calm, Gorals acknowledges the danger, unfazed by the impending ambush. With tactical precision, the commander coordinates his forces, pinpointing the exact locations of the hidden enemies. In the suffocating darkness, the hidden hunters wait in tense silence, completely unaware that they are being watched. The vanguard of the clan prepares their weapons, ready to unleash a merciless counterstrike. The hunters realize too late they've walked into a deadly trap. Gorals' gaze shifts to the mysterious captive girl. Bound in silence, Jang Hayeon looks up in terror, her desperate tears reflecting a world devoid of mercy. A dark saga begins as the Blood Dagger clan prepares to carve their legacy in blood. 3 days before the fateful encounter, the peaceful sky harbors a creeping doom. Desperate screams shatter the quiet valley as a ruthless horde descends without warning. A cold threat echoes through the shadows, demanding absolute submission from the cowering villagers. With trembling hands, they offer their meager harvest as a desperate plea for survival. But a handful of crops is far from enough to satisfy the ruthless horde. Desperate tears fall as the elder begs for mercy, stripped of everything by greedy human tyrants. With their last hope fading, they pray the monsters will spare their starving family. Gorals looks on with quiet disgust, realizing human plunderers had targeted even this meager, pathetic harvest. Confronting the captured thieves, the goblin chieftain questions if they can truly call themselves human after stealing from the weak. Looking over the tiny sacks of food, Gorals grimly notes this meager supply will barely sustain his warriors. With unexpected honor, the goblin leader tosses gold coins to the starving elder. Stunned by the sudden mercy, the old man stares at the glittering gold in utter disbelief. Leaving half the harvest behind, Gorals commands them to buy food, proving his clan possesses more honor than humans. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the elder weeps before her unlikely savior, but Gorls rejects her praise with cold indifference. With the human thieves captured and bound, the goblin warriors await their chieftain's final, merciless judgment. Looking down upon the pathetic plunderers, Gorls utters a ruthless command to execute them without hesitation. In a flash of brutal violence, the goblin blades slice deep, silencing the thieves forever in a crimson spray. Terror grips the helpless villagers as they cower in the shadow of a monstrous presence. Emerging from the shadows, Gorls carries the heavy spoils of their hard-fought victory. With a cold, calculating gaze, the warrior prepares to secure their survival. A discarded notice reveals the growing threat of human hunters targeting their kin. The human empire issues a desperate call to arms, offering rewards for goblin blood. A fierce anger burns in Gorls' eyes as he reads the humans' arrogant declaration of war. From the distant fields, Mev hurries to her champion with an urgent warning. Armed with vital intelligence, Gorls warns his loyal archer of the human guards hunting them. A sinister grin spreads across the master's face as he plots to toy with their foolish pursuers. Eager to prove her devotion, Mev vows never to let her champion down in the coming hunt. Unfazed by the looming threat, the Dark Warrior calmly prepares for the inevitable clash. In the dark of night, the ravenous goblin scouts feast upon their meager spoils, entirely unaware of the eyes watching them from the shadows. Mev watches in silent contemplation, her sharp eyes scanning the camp as she harbors deep doubts about their next move. In the distance, the flickering campfire illuminates the quiet campsite, a fragile sanctuary amidst the looming dangers of the desolate forest. Driven by pure survival, Jang Hayon devours the food, her desperation overriding all fear in this unforgiving wilderness. Tears stream down her face as the bitter reality of her survival washes over her, leaving her broken and weeping. With unexpected gentleness, the monstrous warrior urges her to slow down, offering a rare moment of mercy in a cruel world. Beneath the cold night sky, Gorls stares at the tragic soul before him, lamenting her incredibly cruel misfortune. Desperate for safety, Jang Hayon begs to follow her monstrous savior, offering her absolute obedience in exchange for protection. Her spirit breaks entirely as she weeps, unable to endure the relentless torment of this unforgiving world any longer. But the warrior remains unyielding, his cold rejection shattering her desperate plea for salvation. Left broken on the ground, she weeps in regret, wishing he had never spared her. Gorls watches her despair, reminding himself that pity is a luxury he cannot afford in this cruel world. With a cold heart, he steels his resolve, preparing to sever the fragile bond of mercy. Declaring her independence, the warrior turns his back, abandoning her to the mercy of the wild. Yet in a final act of desperation, she clings to his shadow, refusing to let her only hope slip away. Jang Hayon screams in absolute despair, demanding a swift end rather than facing her tormentor again. The goblin warrior recoils in shock, completely caught off guard by her sudden, suicidal defiance. She flees toward the dark forest, driven by the terrifying memory of her cruel master, Lee Sangjun. Recognizing a dangerous name, the warrior commands her to halt, his suspicions instantly ignited. A cold fury consumes him as he confirms the identity of their mutual, hated enemy. She looks up in shock, her voice trembling as she realizes the monster before her recognizes the name of her tormentor. A dark recognition settles over Gorls, his thoughts drifting back to the bitter history they share with the tyrant. With cold, absolute malice, the Goblin Master declares that some monsters in human skin simply do not deserve to draw breath. Turning back to his captive, he demands to know the depth of her suffering under the enemy's cruel custody. She answers softly, her tear-filled eyes searching his face for any sign of what this revelation truly means. With cold authority, the Goblin Master demands every detail of the enemy's movements, preparing to turn their own traps against them. In the quiet before the storm, a fragile blossom is torn apart, a silent countdown to the impending bloodshed. Lost in her own silent contemplation, Mev watches the petals fall, her heart heavy with the unspoken burdens of their violent path. A sudden voice shatters her solitude, pulling her back from the edge of her thoughts to face the reality of the coming war. Her melancholy instantly vanishes, replaced by pure joy as she welcomes the return of her formidable leader. With a single command, the clan's elite are called to battle. Mev struggles to understand Goral's next move. With a sinister smirk, the goblin leader vows to forge an elite squad and crush the human guards. Safe behind stone walls, the defenders never see the danger coming. Their commander dismisses the monster horde. Unfazed by the reports, the commander remains at ease. Outside, the hunt has already begun. Unbothered by the looming chaos, Commander Lee Sang-jun enjoys a brief moment of quiet arrogance. The fragile peace is instantly shattered as a panicked soldier bursts into the chamber with terrifying news. With absolute terror in his eyes, the messenger points toward the impending doom gathering just beyond their gates. Deeply irritated by the sudden disturbance, Lee Sang-jun prepares to confront whatever threat dares to challenge his authority. A grim discovery of death, with flies buzzing around the cold remains of the fallen. Horror strikes the survivors as they gaze upon the decapitated remains, a brutal warning left by an unseen enemy. On the first morning, the grim reality of survival sets in as they gather around the mutilated bodies of their hunters. Fear spreads through the camp as they realize the goblin hunters have become the prey, with all contact lost. Unable to stomach the sheer brutality of the slaughter, a soldier collapses in sickness as panic grips the outpost. As the massacre unfolds, Lee Sang-jun desperately summons a subjugation squad. The outpost finally understands the true threat. Standing beneath the shadow of death, he gazes upon the grim fate of his once mighty foe. Lee Sang-jun, the legendary commander of the summoners, now hangs lifeless as a testament to his fallen glory. With bitter disgust, he spits on the memory of the tyrant who brought nothing but ruin. On that fateful day, the monster met the noose. Yet one haunting question refused to die. Deep within human territory, a sudden wave of terror shatters the fragile peace of the 13th Guard Unit. Panic consumes Lee Sang-jun as the horrifying truth finally sinks in. His end is near. The hunted have become the hunters. A terrifying discovery reveals the goblins' true wrath. The brutal remains of their vanguard serve as a grim warning of the slaughter to come. Furious and desperate, the commander demands immediate reinforcement to crush the rising monstrous threat. A desperate plea for salvation is sent to the skis, but destiny is already written in blood. A lonely cabin stands silent in the woods, harboring secrets of the coming conflict. Equipped with climbing gear, Gorals prepares to scale the dangerous heights of his next mission. A sudden, subtle movement catches the warrior's eye, breaking his focus. A grotesque visage grins from the wooden wall, a sinister watcher in the dark. Goral stares back with cold suspicion, entirely unfazed by the eerie presence. An unexpected voice breaks the silence as an old hunter confronts the monstrous warrior. With cold precision, Gorals offers a single gold coin as payment for the old man's forced silence. A second stack of gold clinks onto the table, settling the debt for the stolen climbing gear. Looking down with chilling intensity, the goblin master demands absolute understanding from his captive. Terrified and helpless, the old hunter nods frantically to secure his fleeting survival. Leaving the cabin behind, Goral steps into the cold night, his grim mission finally underway. Mev returns in triumph, rallying the strongest warriors of the clan to serve her chieftain's grand design. The fierce recruits stand ready, their bloodlust ignited by the legendary name of the Blood Dagger clan. A rare moment of warmth breaks through the grim tension as Gorals acknowledges his loyal archer's success. With the fortress in their sights, Gorals lays out a ruthless strategy to unleash absolute chaos upon the human invaders. The chieftain arms his chosen warriors for the infiltration. Confused, they await his next command. With cold authority, Gorals declares them the elite vanguard, the very first raiding squad of the Blood Dagger clan. Under the cover of darkness, a rain of fire descends upon the unsuspecting human outpost, shattering the quiet night. Absolute chaos erupts within the fortress walls as the panicked defenders realize the monstrous horde is already upon them. Mev orders his men to open fire. In response, goblin archers unleash a deadly rain of arrows upon the fortress. Panic spreads like wildfire as a desperate soldier scrambles up the wooden steps to sound the alarm. The doors burst open as a breathless messenger reports a devastating goblin air raid. Furious and trembling with rage, the captain bellows desperate orders to seal the gates and defend the walls. With fear gripping his heart, the soldier scrambles to execute the final, desperate command of his commander. Trembling in the shadows of his own fortress, the realization of an unprecedented monster invasion sends shivers down his spine. Goblins attacking a fortress was unheard of, a terrifying anomaly that defies everything they knew about the beasts. Desperation takes hold as he clings to the fragile hope that their massive stone walls will hold until reinforcements arrive. But the silence of the night is shattered as a cold steel hook grips the stone edge of the high wall. A lone guard turns to investigate the strange sound, completely unaware that the silent hunters have already breached their defenses. A lone guard peers into the abyss, completely unaware of the silent executioner climbing the cold stone. Without a sound, cold steel pierces through flesh, silencing his scream before it can even form. The defender falls in a single blow. Death arrives without warning or mercy. From the shadows of the parapet, Mev surveys her lethal handiwork, the fortress defenses crumbling effortlessly. Watching the plan unfold perfectly, Gorls draws his blade and leads his clan into the enemy fortress. In the quiet of the night, a silent scout slips past the outer defenses, securing their path into the stronghold. The signal is given, whispering through the shadows as the vanguard prepares to unleash their deadly ambush. The Blood Dagger clan's elite raid squad stands ready, their weapons primed to carve a path of absolute destruction. With ruthless precision, Gorls orders his horde to strike swiftly, plunder the outpost, and eliminate the human captain. Like shadows in the night, the monstrous vanguard closes in on the unaware defenders. A solitary guard cries out in alarm, completely unaware of the silent blade closing in from behind. From the darkness, crossbows release their deadly bolts with mechanical precision. A sudden, silent projectile pierces the guard's skull, cutting his final warning short. With the defenses shattered, Gorls ascends the wooden scaffolding to claim his ultimate prize. In the dead of night, the silent predator stalks its prey, completely undetected by the arrogant human sentry. With terrifying speed, a cold blade slices through the darkness, silencing the guard's voice forever. Dragged into the cold embrace of death, the helpless soldier struggles in vain against the predator's iron grip. Plunging into the silent abyss, the broken sentry falls like a stone, leaving only dread in his wake. Looking down upon the fallen, the merciless hunter bids a cold farewell to another foolish victim. Panic spreads through the fortress as a massive blow shatters its defenses. The siege has begun. The heavy wooden gates buckle under the relentless assault of an unstoppable force. Terror grips the sentry as he realizes the fortress walls have finally been breached. Heavy footsteps echo through the corridor, signaling the arrival of a deadly visitor. Gorl steps from the shadows, ready to unleash absolute despair upon his terrified prey. Shock paralyzes the commander as a voice from the shadows shatters his reality. Drawing his blade in sheer panic, Lee Sangjun demands to know how a mere beast can speak like a man. A chilling grin answers him, reminding the tyrant that death is the least of his concerns. Facing his resurrected nightmare, the commander stares into the eyes of the monster he thought he had destroyed. A single sentence from the Gorls is enough to break Lee Sangjun's resolve. Deep within the suffocating darkness of the cavern, the desperate echoes of frantic footsteps shatter the quiet. Gasping for air, the exhausted survivors flee through the shadows, terror driving them forward as their strength fades. Shin Diakho pushes forward in agony. On the verge of collapse, his spirit finally begins to break. But there is no time for weakness, as his companion fiercely demands they push past their limits to survive. Driven by pure desperation, the fleeing warriors look back, praying the monstrous shadows do not close the distance. But the dark abyss unleashes its savage hunters, ravenous beasts mutated and hunger-driven, closing in for the kill. Terror shatters his resolve as the agonizing realization of their impending doom echoes through the suffocating cavern. Abandoned as helpless bait by their cold-hearted commander, they run blindly, cursing the bitter sting of betrayal. Face to face with his mortal enemy, Gorls demands answers from the trembling commander. With a chilling smile, the Goblin chieftain suggests they find a more private place to settle their score. Blinded by desperate rage, Lee Sangjun refuses to yield, drawing his blade in a futile act of defiance. But defiance is met with cold steel as the Goblin vanguard prepares to bring him down. Surrounded on all sides, Lee Sangjun watches his doom close in. With a chilling, monstrous grin, Gorls reminds his tormentor of the cold, unyielding hatred that fuels his vengeance. Bound and broken, the fallen commander is dragged into the shadows, his reign of terror brought to a swift end. The victorious elite squad slips away into the night, carrying their prized captive deep into the dark forest. Cast down onto the cold stone, the once-proud leader collapses in utter despair, stripped of all power. One final blow sends the tyrant plunging into darkness. The captive struggles, but escape is impossible. Plunging from the heavens, the helpless prey crashes into the unforgiving earth below. Gasping for breath, the broken survivor stares into the shadows, consumed by sheer terror. The monstrous scouts close in, confirming the tyrant has survived his fall just as their chieftain predicted. With a brutal grip, the shadows reclaim their prize, sealing his fate in the dark forest. Sensing the shifting tide of battle, Gorls orders an immediate retreat before the human forces can rally. The signal horn echoes through the canopy, summoning the devastating power of their hidden traps. Mev stands frozen as the thunderous horn blast shatters the silence, signaling a sudden shift in their strategy. With the order delivered, the green-skinned warriors vanish into the dense forest, leaving their confused enemies behind. A lone guard peers over the stone battlements, scanning the quiet horizon for any sign of the approaching enemy. A sudden shout shatters the tense silence as the commander orders his men to halt their counterfire. As the sun begins to set, a fragile peace settles over the quiet valley, but the shadows are already growing. Deep within the quiet outpost, the defenders remain entirely unaware of the monstrous doom preparing to descend upon them. A simple offer of food breaks the silent tension, a rare moment of humanity in a cruel and unforgiving world. Still shaken, the young woman silently watches her savior. Nearby, quiet footsteps draw ever closer. A weary survivor offers a rare gesture of kindness, presenting a simple meal to ease the heavy silence. Haunted by the ghosts of her past, Jang Hayon remains frozen in deep, melancholic contemplation. With gentle reassurance, he places the food before her, trying to pierce her walls of absolute distrust. Under the fading light of dusk, two lost souls find a brief moment of quiet respite together. A sudden word of gratitude breaks the quiet, catching Jang Hayon completely off guard. A dark memory of execution lingers as the old survivor recalls a narrow escape from a brutal fate. Amidst the cold despair, a rare gesture of pity from Jang Hayon sparks a fragile bond of gratitude. A single, whispered word breaks the silence, revealing a mysterious truth that changes everything. The elder reveals the truth of the summoned, those dragged from another world into this endless nightmare. The harsh realization of her status as a summoned soul settles heavily upon Jang Hayon. The elder explains the standard ritual of awakening, where special abilities are unlocked through a trial. She ponders her own potential, wondering if she possesses any hidden strength to survive. Without warning, a system window appears. Only a blood sacrifice can unlock her true power. The grim tutorial quest is laid bare, offering power in exchange for goblin blood. Beneath the dark forest, the survivors rest in silence. Hidden goblin scouts quietly watch their every move. With sharp conviction, Mev mockingly scoffs at her companion's ignorance regarding the nature of human encounters. A terrifying aura erupts from Mev as she demands absolute obedience, silencing any doubts with a single menacing glare. From a safe distance, the human survivors watch the chaotic antics of their captors, finding a strange sense of amusement in their rowdy behavior. Behind closed doors, muffled groans of pain echo through the night as the harsh reality of their situation sinks in. Pierced by agonizing light, the fallen commander screams as ancient magic tears through his flesh. One brutal strike forces the tyrant to his knees, his defiance finally crumbles. With cold, unyielding eyes, Gorls demands the truth from his resurrected enemy. Bound and broken, Lee Sang-jun faces the ultimate question of his impossible survival. Defiant to the end, the battered commander sneers, mocking the very nature of his miraculous escape. A brutal fist crushes his defiance, punishing his stubborn silence. A relentless barrage of blows leaves the broken commander battered and helpless. Screaming in absolute agony, the desperate captive begs for mercy, unable to endure the merciless onslaught. Broken and terrified, he demands to know what secret his tormentor seeks to extract from him. With a cold, piercing gaze, Gorls demands the impossible truth of his survival once more. Screaming in sheer frustration and terror, the broken captive desperately tries to deny the impossible reality of his own demise. With a cold, unyielding gaze, Gorls recalls the execution, certain he witnessed the tyrant draw his final breath upon the gallows. The mention of the legendary holy sword leaves the captive utterly paralyzed, his mind fracturing under the weight of an impossible truth. Denying any knowledge of the executioner, the terrified prisoner desperately screams against the madness of his bizarre fate. With a vice-like grip, Gorls confronts the trembling captive, exposing the dark sins of his past exploitation. The grip tightens as the horrifying truth of his depravity is laid bare, shattering his fragile composure. A grim revelation of his ultimate fate at the hands of the holy sword leaves the captive paralyzed with dread. Desperation turns to denial as the captive frantically protests his innocence, pleading against an impossible destiny. The captive's desperate plea catches Gorls off guard, sparking a sudden, tense realization within the Goblin Master. Examining the prisoner with cold precision, Gorls searches for any sign of deceit in the man's trembling words. Finding no falsehood in the captive's terror, Gorls realizes the timeline of this world does not align with his memories. As the bloody commander trembles in confusion, a deep, unsettling mystery begins to unravel before them. A chilling truth dawns upon the warrior, revealing a terrifying anomaly in the very fabric of his reality. Gorls demands answers from his bound captive, seeking a truth that could shatter his entire understanding of this world. Violence erupts as the Goblin chieftain beats his prisoner, desperate to extract the exact date of this era. Bloodied and broken, the captive gasps out the terrifying reality of the imperial year. The revelation strikes Gorls like a physical blow, freezing him in absolute, stunned disbelief. Overwhelmed by the impossible truth, the warrior shields his face, grappling with the distortion of time itself. The captive screams in desperation, demanding his freedom after yielding all his secrets. A chilling memory halts the goblin's steps, recalling an ancient, unfulfilled promise. Looming behind his terrified prey, Gorls prepares to unleash a long-awaited retribution. A burning oath of vengeance ignites his soul, sealing the fate of his sworn enemy. Gorls grips his prey with cold, unyielding fury, the long-awaited moment of retribution finally within his grasp. With a sickening crunch, the tyrant's skull begins to buckle under the overwhelming strength of the Goblin Master. The ancient vow is fulfilled as the monster looks down upon the broken remains of his sworn enemy. Deep within a quiet, isolated settlement, the wheels of destiny begin to turn once more. Awakening 5 years before his tragic demise, he stares in disbelief at a past he thought was gone. This is no mere resurrection. He has been cast back through the currents of time itself. Stepping out into a world he thought he had lost, he prepares to rewrite his grim fate. Before him lies a familiar figure, a remnant of a past life he must now protect. Mysterious warrior approaches Jang Hyeon, his gaze piercing and filled with unspoken intent. Startled by his sudden presence, Jang Hyeon looks up, her heart racing as she answers his call. Even amidst the quiet settlement, watchful eyes linger in the shadows, observing their every move. The wind howls through the ancient canopy, carrying with it the heavy scent of an impending storm. Deep within the secluded forest, the two stand face to face, prepared to forge an uncertain alliance. With gravity in his voice, he questions her resolve, demanding to know if she is truly ready to follow him. No promises of safety can be made on this perilous path, yet her unwavering gaze speaks of absolute resolve. The goblin warns of the treacherous path ahead, demanding to know if she has the strength to survive. With unwavering resolve, she declares her commitment to follow him into the unknown. He commands her to remember a vital phrase, one that will dictate her survival. A grim decree is spoken, marking her as the spoils of war to shield her from others. Confused by the declaration, she learns the stark truth of her new reality. He explains the harsh law of his kind, where ownership is her only protection. A final ominous warning lingers as he draws near, sealing their fragile pact. Gorls offers a rare moment of mercy, granting her the freedom to flee if her resolve falters. Overwhelmed by his unexpected leniency, she whispers her fragile gratitude into the silent woods. As they venture deeper into the wilderness, she musters the courage to speak of her desperate plight. With tears of shame and exhaustion, she begs for a simple luxury denied to her for far too long. A sudden intrusion shatters the quiet, revealing a stealthy observer caught red-handed in the shadows. To protect his claim, Gorls issues a stern decree that marks her as his exclusive possession. Beneath the quiet canopy, a temporary shelter is erected, shielding them from the harsh realities of the wild. Gorls and his seasoned companions stand before the tent, preparing for the grim tasks ahead. Burdened by a growing debt of gratitude, Gorls offers a sincere apology, weary of relying on another's strength. With a stern but reassuring gaze, the veteran dismisses the debt, reminding his ally that their accounts are already settled. In the background, a lifeless body is dragged away, a grim reminder of the brutal cost of their journey. A dark humor cuts through the tension, as the veteran muses on the fallen foe, noting the deep-seated grudge that fueled the conflict. A bitter truth is revealed as the old hunter speaks of the guard unit's tyrannical reign over the helpless villagers. Under the guise of taxes and endless requisitions, the corrupt captains stripped the people of their very livelihood. Driven to the absolute brink by relentless greed, the veteran was forced into the perilous life of a goblin hunter. With the captain's demise, a dark shadow is lifted, promising a grim celebration for those who suffered under his rule. Amidst the lingering tension, Mev arrives with garments from the human market, offering a brief moment of normalcy. Tension rises outside the tent, as garments are delivered, sparking quiet suspicion about the true status of their captive. A startling declaration of absolute submission echoes through the steam, leaving the listener utterly stunned. Urgent warnings are whispered in the shadows, desperately trying to keep the delicate secret from spreading further. Standing amidst the quiet woods, Gorls struggles to comprehend his miraculous return from the grip of death. With a heavy heart, he realizes that those destined to perish have merely been granted a temporary reprieve from fate. A dark realization dawns as a sinister grin spreads across the Gorls' face, fueled by a sudden shocking truth. Beneath the pouring rain, Gorls stands frozen in deep thought, piecing together the impossible puzzle of survival. A glimmer of hope ignites within the darkness, turning despair into a fierce, unspoken resolve. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, the shocking truth hits him that Seulgi might still be drawing breath. Haunted by memories of brutal betrayal and senseless slaughter, his priorities instantly shift toward the living. The warm memory of Seulgi's vibrant smile flashes before his eyes, a precious light he is desperate to reclaim. Clutching her close in the pouring rain, he swears a solemn oath to never let her perish again. A monstrous resolve takes hold as a dark vow is whispered into the storm. Under the cold gaze of a crescent moon, silent wings carry dark portents through the night. Deep within the shadowed forest, a gruesome discovery hangs suspended in the chilling air. Guided by flickering torchlight, a lone scout uncovers a horrifying testament of violence. The gruesome visage of death stares back, confirming their most terrible fears. As the cavalry arrives, the grim reality of their failure settles over the silent woods. Disbelief grips the archer as she beholds the cruel display of their fallen comrade. Whispers of an extraordinary foe weigh heavily on the mage's mind. An ominous premonition takes root, warning of a threat unlike any they have faced. With grim resolve, the company advances into the dark woods to recover their dead. The commander prepares his men for the inevitable bloody clash ahead. A grim testament to the brutality of their foes, a fallen warrior lies cold, his final moments frozen in silent agony. Driven by a burning vow of vengeance, the legendary Twilight Swordsman prepares to unleash his ultimate wrath upon the monsters. High above the massive stone fortress, a commanding shout echoes through the air, ordering the guards to open the heavy gates. Cheers erupt across the courtyard as the emigrated mercenary group known as the Ember Chasers makes their triumphant return. Riding at the front on armored steeds, these seasoned veterans arrive just in time to answer the distress call. Hope shatters at the gates. Amidst a suffocating silence, the mercenaries return with no captain, only the harrowing reality of his demise. Mocking their return, a sentinel confronts the patrol, demanding to know if Sergeant Lee Sangjun has been found. As silent dread grips the officers, Sergeant Kim Hanjol smirks. With the commander absent, the new captain moves to claim absolute power. With a solemn expression, the veteran officer reports the grim news, revealing that they arrived far too late. He explains that on their way to the site, the coroner had already officially identified the body. Holding the heavy pouch firmly in his hands, the old man feels the distinct weight of the coins, inside carefully inspecting the bag as a soft jingle echoes through the air. Explaining the terms of their deal, the man proudly notes that they included an extra bonus on top of the reward originally contracted by the higher-ups. However, he admits that their overall mission is still far from completely finished. Hearing that Lee Sang-jun has finally been located, the mercenary smiles, cheerfully pointing out that their main objective is as good as done. Paid to bury the shameful slaughter of their fallen guards, a cold mercenary silences the truth as the vanguard rides forth. One of the mounted squad members fumes in anger, furious that someone would dare speak to their leader with such disrespect. His companion quickly urges him to quiet down, warning him that his loud mouth could easily be overheard. Silencing his reckless squad, the veteran commands the march. Hanjeol dismisses the rising tension as a shrouded rider silently prepares to move out. Without uttering a single word, the older warrior tightens his grip on the pouch, listening to the faint clinking of coins while keeping his stoic gaze fixed ahead. The old veteran glances back over his shoulder, watching the young man stand firm before the gathered crowd. With a soft smirk, he raises the pouch of gold high in the air and gives it a cheerful shake as a final farewell. As the group prepares to ride out, cheers ring out across the courtyard for the old man. The riders look back with respect, calling out their gratitude to the elder for his guidance before setting off on their journey. As they travel, frustration lingers over their encounter with the 13th Guard. Angered by being dismissed as mere merchants, they remind themselves who they truly are: mercenaries bound by contracts, profit, and the battlefield. Curious about the reward, the monocled mercenary asks if the outpost promised a bonus. The elder confirms it with a grin: 2 extra silver coins for every head they deliver. The female mercenary scoffs in complete disbelief, astonished that the soldier back at the outpost was acting so smug over a measly couple of coins. Riding alongside her veteran companion, the young archer questions if they're really just going to turn back empty-handed, reminding him that he admitted he's never encountered a goblin like this before. The gray-haired warrior turns to Hong Yom, asking if she still hasn't figured out their elder's style after all this time. Riding toward the private houses, the group sets out to uncover the mysterious incident. Leading the way on his white horse, the elder hears his companion warn that such a suspicious case demands investigation. According to the coroner's report, Sergeant Lee Sang-jun was brutally tortured before his death, suffering severe liver damage alongside multiple broken ribs and a shattered spine. The medical examiner points out that goblins typically aim for the head using simple tools or bite into exposed vital points for a quick kill. The calculated torture inflicted on this corpse completely contradicts their usual wild behavior. Speculating on the bizarre nature of the scene, the writer considers that they might be dealing with an entirely unknown beast, or perhaps someone behind the scenes is controlling them from the shadows. Deciding on their next move, the writers agree to search for a nearby inn first. They figure the local tavern is the best place to start gathering rumors about what is going on while grabbing a drink along the way. As they make their way toward the peaceful village, banter breaks out among the writers about the old man's habit of drinking. He casually laughs off the accusation, keeping the atmosphere relaxed as they head closer to their destination. Leading her inside the dark stone dwelling, the host shows his guest to her new quarters, offering her a safe place to rest for the time being. After a hesitant pause, Jang Hyeon questions whether the organized cave means goblins live like humans, only for Gorals to scoff in response. Gorals explains that he modified the arrangements as best he could, ensuring she can rest comfortably for as long as she stays with them. Surprised by his unexpected consideration, Jang Hyeon stammers out her quiet gratitude to the goblin warrior. He points toward a quiet corner of the shelter, letting her know she can sleep there whenever she needs to rest. As for meals, he tells her to simply take whatever she can eat from the rations his men bring back. She quietly settles onto the bed, taking in her surroundings as the reality of her new refuge sinks in. Gorals looks over at her, speaking with a calm tone as he addresses the uncertain road lying ahead. He knows that for now this hidden cavern is the safest refuge she could possibly find. As quiet slumber claims her soul, he marvels at her sudden peace. Guarded by loyal allies, their sanctuary stands secured at last. Nearby, Jang Hyeon rests peacefully under a warm blanket, completely oblivious to the dark calculations taking place nearby. Deep in thought, Goral strikes a contemplative pose, his sharp eyes narrowing as he processes every piece of information he just extracted. With the map laid out before him, Gorals narrows his eyes, sorting out the situation as he plans his next move. With a flick, he opens his status screen, revealing his profile as a level 6 clan master, ranked 9th. Freely opening his status window, Gorals recalls the days he could only check it twice daily before turning to the challenges ahead. Gorals checks his tutorial quest: survive 100 days as a green skin. With just 20 days left, 10-0 gold and a secret shop unlock await as he plans his next move. Gorals realizes the 10-0 gold is exclusive to the secret shop. He then reviews his evolution quest, tracking the EXP needed to evolve while considering paths like assassin or blacksmith. Considering the options of becoming a goblin shaman or a goblin archer, Gorals wonders if choosing those classes means he would be following the exact same tech path as Lord Morksul or Mev. Having spent his whole previous life wielding a sword until his death, Gorls refuses to abandon close-quarters combat for a ranged style now. Knowing only the warrior path can fulfill his revenge, Gorls drives his blade deep into the wooden floor. Lee Sang-jun is the first name Gorls crosses off his list. Now his sights are set on Ha Yurai as his revenge continues. Even if Seulgi lives, Gorls refuses to forgive. Every person behind his suffering will pay. Interrupting the quiet moment, an excited Mev bursts into the cavern at full speed, shouting at the top of her lungs that she has brought urgent news for Gorls. Intrigued by her sudden outburst, Gorls leans over the table and demands to know what this big news is all about. Caught off guard by his intense focus, Mev falters and struggles to find the words to deliver her report. She points upward in a panic, blurting out that whatever is happening is right outside their hideout. But before she can explain any further, her voice catches in her throat as she suddenly freezes in place. Mev stands before him, sniffling and close to tears, softly calling out his name. Seeing his usually confident archer so visibly shaken, Gorls asks her what could possibly be wrong. Tears stream down Mev's face as she suddenly bursts into a scream, calling Gorls a complete liar. Taken completely off guard by her wild outburst, Gorls stammers in confusion, asking what on earth she could possibly be talking about. She storms off in a complete huff, screaming that she is leaving and that she hates her man. Gorls shouts after her in frustration, begging her to at least spill the big news before running away. Gorls reaches out to grab her, desperately yelling at Mev to wait a second and explain what on earth this is all about. Mev bursts into tears of shock and jealousy, screaming at him to explain why their female human captive is sleeping soundly in his bed. Mev grabs hold of Gorls in tears, frantically demanding to know if he and their human captive have already taken things too far. Tears stream down her face as she wails hysterically, claiming Gorls as her man and insisting she was supposed to be the first one with him. Without saying a word, Gorls suddenly pulls her into a tight embrace, instantly cutting off her frantic tirade. Completely taken off guard, tears still hang in her wide eyes as her mind goes completely blank from the sudden affection. Holding her close, Gorls flatly dismisses the absurd rumor, explaining that he never did anything inappropriate with the prize. Hearing his honest answer, Mev looks up through her tears, her heart soaring with instant relief. Gorls smirks mischievously as he leans in close to Mev, teasing her by asking if he isn't her man after all. Hearing Gorls echo her own bold words about mating, Mev's entire face turns bright red as her jaw drops in complete shock. Changing the subject, Gorls asks for Mev's report. Her hand barely reaches his shoulder before the moment is shattered. Her eyes widen in sudden shock as an unexpected revelation catches her completely off guard. Mev suddenly bursts into motion, pointing urgently as she warns Gorls that a squad known as the Ember Chasers is actively hunting him down. Gorls can only tilt his head in mild confusion, completely unfamiliar with the name, as he asks her to clarify who these chasers are. Panicking instantly, she warns him that the Ember Chasers are a group of notorious bastards, desperately trying to make him realize just how ruthless this hunting squad truly is. Unbothered, Gorls tries to recall the Ember Chasers, completely missing the danger. Frustrated beyond belief, Mev yells at him, sharply correcting the group's name. A sudden realization strikes Gorls as the infamous name clicks into place. The truth about his formidable pursuers sends a chill down his spine. Shocked to her core, the Goblin grabs Mev by the shoulders and demands immediate answers. She can hardly believe her ears as she asks if the terrifying force Mev mentioned is truly the infamous Ember Chasers. Mev shouts back in frustration, insisting she has been trying to tell them that all along. The reality of the Ember Chasers' presence sets in, leaving her trembling with anxiety as the dangerous truth hangs in the air. Before her panic can escalate, a calm pair of hands reaches out to steady her, bringing an abrupt halt to her frantic outburst. Gorls breaks into a cold sweat as he realizes the Ember Chasers have arrived. Rushing forward in panic, he desperately questions why fate brought this deadly enemy to his clan. Desperate footsteps echo through the suffocating cavern as two exhausted survivors sprint toward a distant light, urging each other to hold on just a little longer. Gasping for air, Shin Diako pushes his body to the absolute limit, his lungs burning as terror drives him forward through the dark. Without warning, a mutated beast leaps from the shadows, swinging a deadly curved weapon straight toward the fleeing men. The lethal strike lands with crushing force, plunging deep into his companion's shoulder and cutting their escape short. He crashes brutally onto the hard stone floor while Shin Diako watches in sheer horror, paralyzed by the sudden assault. Pleading to awaken his fallen comrade before darkness consumes them, a young warrior raises his shield against a beast's devastating strike. Gritting his teeth through the crushing force, the young soldier gasps in agony as he struggles to hold his ground against the monster's overwhelming strength. Suddenly, a blinding flash of energy cuts straight through the darkness, brutally striking down the beast in a single unexpected strike. Shaken and breathing heavily, he looks up in total shock, hearing a calm voice calling out to check on his safety. Emerging from the gloom, a distinguished veteran leads a squad of seasoned mercenaries known as the Ember Chasers. The mercenary leader looks down with a calm, composed expression, politely asking the young survivor for his name. Expressing his deep gratitude first, the exhausted survivor catches his breath and offers his thanks to the veteran group for saving his life. Pushing through his exhaustion, the young soldier catches his breath and introduces himself as Kim Taesung to his saviors. Approaching from behind, Mev rushes to catch up with Gorls, checking in to see if he was hurt after their recent clash. Gorls holds his head in deep frustration, realizing that his recent movements drew far too much attention and brought the legendary Ember Chasers straight onto his trail. Turning back to his trusted archer, Gorls urgently demands to know the exact location where the mercenary squad was last spotted so he can prepare his next move. The team arrives at the cavern entrance, spotting a grim skull banner hanging high above the dark passage. The flag marks the lair of ruthless scum, who prey upon fellow summoned souls in this unforgiving world. Their leader turns to the squad, ensuring everyone understands the gravity of the task ahead. Their mission is to wipe out the camp, rescue the captives, and investigate reports of a legendary goblin roaming the region. With everyone in agreement, the captain draws his blades, giving the final command to move out. Inside the hideout, armed captors keep a close eye on their helpless prisoners. The captive civilians huddle together in tears, praying for someone to break their chains before time runs out. Down at the camp, the captors are suddenly startled when a voice booms from the cliffs above, calling out to them directly. Stepping into view, the veteran captain politely asks the bandits to cooperate and hand over the captives peacefully. But the bandits scoff at his request, outraged that anyone would dare challenge them on their own turf. Their leader draws his weapon and screams at his men to kill the intruders on the spot. A wave of angry fighters charges forward with weapons drawn, completely ignoring any chance for negotiation. Seeing the horde rush in, the captain remains completely unfazed, noting that peaceful cooperation was never an option anyway. One of the guards shouts that they picked the wrong place to break into as he lunges forward, swinging his axe down with full force. But before the heavy weapon can land, Gorls draws his steel and counters in a split second, slicing right through the attacker's guard. The man screams in agony as his arm is completely severed from his body, blood spraying across the stone. Without missing a beat, Gorls unleashes a massive arc of blue energy, tearing through the front ranks of the enemy force. In one continuous motion, he carves through the rest of the squad, leaving them broken and bloody before they even realize what hit them. The enemy commander orders his archers to target the old man, taking aim and drawing their bows to unleash a lethal volley across the field. But before their arrows can leave the string, incoming fire strikes the archers from behind, setting them ablaze in an instant. Mev draws back her bow with a cold glare, mocking their desperate attempt to strike down her ally. Panicking from the sudden ambush, the commander screams for their mage to step up and fall back into formation. Before anyone can react, the old warrior glides across the battlefield, carving through the enemy ranks in a flash of blue steel. Carnage paints the earth crimson. Amidst the slaughter, an ancient master sheathes his steel, cursing the slowing touch of age. Without missing a beat, he unleashes another devastating arc of energy, sweeping away whatever resistance remains. A blue surge of power rips through the air as the old warrior steps back, keeping his guard up after the initial clash. Screaming for the old man to step back, Mev pulls her bowstring to the limit, igniting a fiery arrow aimed straight at their enemy. Her flaming arrow shoots through the sky, colliding head-on with a massive sphere of freezing blue energy in midair. The clash of heat and frost triggers a violent explosion that shatters the earth and scatters debris in every direction. As the smoke clears, the group stands together, demanding to know who dared interrupt their battle. Emerging from a swirling vortex of frost, a formidable opponent appears on the field, the ice mage Choi Deokpal. Furious at the sudden interference, the rogue mage roars across the battlefield, demanding to know why anyone would dare meddle in his business. Unfazed by the loud outburst, the veteran mercenary calmly adjusts his eye lens, pointing out that the rogue mage is the one who has lost his sanity. Taking a deliberate step forward, the mercenary expresses his complete disgust, disappointed that someone granted rare magic chose to side with cold-blooded killers. The insulted mage seethes with rising anger, warning his opponent that he has just crossed a line he cannot step back from. Twisting his face into a wicked grin, the rogue mage unleashes a swirling tempest of freezing energy, vowing to bury his enemy where he stands. The rogue mage unleashes his cold spear spell, driving a swirling vortex of freezing energy directly at his opponent. But his target stands unfazed, flashing a calm, mocking smirk as the attack draws near. Panic instantly sets in as the spell completely vanishes, leaving the rogue mage gasping in shock as his magic fails. Moments later, the mysterious warrior effortlessly manifests the exact same ice spell right in his own palm. Backing away in horror, the rogue demands to know how anyone could possibly steal and control his personal spell. With a confident smirk, the warrior reveals his true nature as an anti-mage, specifically a spell thief ready to turn that magic right back on him. The spell thief unleashes the stolen ice magic, sending a crystal spear straight through the rogue mage's skull in a swift, fatal strike. The rogue crashes onto the jagged stone below, dead on impact. Gantal casually catches his prize, inspecting a smooth white orb with a smirk on his face. Arrogantly, he returns to his comrades, declaring their threat utterly vanquished. His archer teammate immediately snaps, utterly furious at his total lack of tactical foresight. She screams at him for killing their high-value target instead of capturing him for interrogation, leaving Gantal to awkwardly realize his blunder. Before their bickering can escalate any further, the party's veteran leader steps in, demanding they stay focused on rescuing the hostages. The human mercenaries press forward across the rugged terrain, following their leader's orders as they search the area. High above on a rocky ridge, Gorls observes their movements from the shadows, noting how cautiously they navigate the trail. Gorls stares down at the group, silently reminiscing about how noble these mercenaries still are in this era. A sudden alarm catches him off guard as a glowing interface materializes before his eyes. The system issues a hitman quest, alerting him to a dangerous enemy lurking nearby. The system displays detailed cards of his 3 targets, assigning him a mandatory quest to eliminate the entire party. Unfazed by the sudden quest, Gorls stands ready to execute his next strategic move against the approaching squad. Gorls finally understands the danger of the Ember Chasers. Cursing under his breath, he knows a single misstep could destroy his clan as he prepares for the deadliest fight of his life. Steeling his resolve in the quiet darkness, he prepares to lead his clan through their darkest hour. With eyes burning with cold malice, the hunt begins and no mercy shall be spared. Faced with a choice that defies his dark nature, Gorls raises his hand to reject a blood-soaked mandate. Even as the system warns of devastating penalties, the Goblin leader chooses to abandon the hunt. A cascade of harsh penalties rains down, striking a heavy blow to the clan's hard-won reputation. Memories of his saviors flash before his eyes, staying his lethal hand against the only humans who showed him mercy. Steeling his resolve, Gorls vows to avoid a deadly clash with his former allies at all costs. At the crossroads of fate, the path ahead leads toward a quiet village and a looming storm. A frantic cry shatters the peace of Pendleton Village as a young boy warns of approaching riders. Emerging from the dusty trail, a band of seasoned mercenaries returns, bringing rescued captives back to safety. Overjoyed by their miraculous return, the grateful villagers weep and praise their heroic saviors. Tears flow freely as families torn apart by tragedy are finally reunited in a warm embrace. Among the weeping crowd, the battle-hardened mercenaries stand silent, witnessing the fragile peace they fought to protect. With deep humility, the village elder bows before the legendary warriors, offering his eternal gratitude. Accepting the praise with quiet grace, the veteran mercenary leader smiles, content to have brought hope to this weary land. With a trembling voice, the grateful elder pours out his heart, praising the rare honor of his saviors. A heavy pouch of coins is offered in humble gratitude, a meager reward for a deed of immense gravity. With a gentle smile, the veteran warrior accepts the offering, refusing to let pride overshadow their simple bond. But the warmth quickly fades as a chilling question shatters the peace-seeking rumors of a legendary beast. The mention of the beast leaves the elder paralyzed with dread, a silent terror gripping his fragile heart. In the quiet shadows, the captive girl watches in silent apprehension, her fate hanging in the balance. Wandering through the quiet cavern, Jang Hayeon explores her strange new sanctuary, her heart heavy with lingering uncertainty. A cold blade catches her eye, a stark reminder of the violent world she barely survived. A sudden thunderous shockwave shatters the silence, sending a jolt of pure terror through her veins. Startled by the abrupt blast, she cries out, bracing for an attack from the darkness. But instead of a monstrous threat, strange purple fruits bounce across the stone floor, leaving her utterly bewildered. Gathering the fallen harvest, she looks up to find a tiny green-skinned child staring back at her in curious silence. With a gentle smile, she offers a piece of the sweet fruit, bridging the gap between human and monster. Entrusted with a simple offering, Jang Hayeon watches the fragile creature approach, her defenses momentarily lowering in the quiet dark. Tiny trembling hands reach out, seeking the only warmth offered in this desolate abyss. A sudden embrace shatters her solitude, binding human and monster in a desperate grasp for survival. Looking up with innocent eyes, the child of the wild knows nothing of the hatred that divides their worlds. For a brief moment, Jang Hayeon feels the warmth of hope return. Then a cruel system shatters the silence, demanding blood to awaken her hidden power. As the blade glints in the shadows, she hesitates, caught between her humanity and survival. Under the cover of a quiet night, the seasoned mercenaries set up camp, unaware of the dark shadows creeping closer. A simple meal roasts over the crackling flames as the hunters share a brief moment of warmth in the unforgiving wild. As the fire burns low, the weary companions offer their leader a share of the feast, sensing his deep distraction. The veteran leader strokes his chin, deeply unsettled by the bizarre and calculated nature of the goblin they're tracking. Hongyeom watches her veteran commander, closely questioning the heavy thoughts that seem to weigh upon his mind. Analyzing the grim trail of bodies, he notes that the victims were exclusively armed summoners who targeted the weak. The realization settles heavily that this monstrous prey possesses a chilling human-like intelligence to exploit local conflicts. Dread paralyzes the young mercenary. Their monstrous prey is no beast but a calculating predator systematically hunting specific human targets. A heavy silence falls over the campfire as the veteran leader prepares to reveal a dark rumor from the nearby village. With eyes cold as stone, the elder speaks of a terrifying anomaly, a goblin that speaks the tongue of men. Laughter erupts in the dark as the companions dismiss the myth, refusing to believe a mere beast could possess human speech. But the shadows are listening, and a silent predator closes in on their camp under the cover of night. From the darkness, the monstrous chieftain whispers their name, his cold eyes locked onto his next targets. With silent lethal steps, the vanguard of the Blood Dagger clan prepares to execute a merciless ambush. A sudden presence shatters the silence, catching the companions completely off guard as danger looms closer. The veteran warrior senses the heavy gaze of an unseen observer, realizing their movements have been closely watched. Stepping from the shadows, the mysterious blue-skinned warrior cuts straight to the chase with cold, calculating eyes. Reacting with lethal instinct, the fierce young warrior unleashes a sudden lightning-fast strike to test her opponent. With effortless grace, the mysterious traveler deflects the deadly projectile, completely unfazed by the sudden hostility. Disbelief freezes the companions as they witness his overwhelming speed, realizing they are facing a formidable foe. With a chilling calm, the powerful warrior delivers a polite yet terrifying warning to those who dare test his patience. A terrifying shadow looms over Pendleton Village as bloodthirsty monsters lie in wait, ready to unleash absolute devastation. Leveraging the lives of innocent villagers, the cunning warrior delivers a chilling ultimatum to his formidable adversaries. Realizing they have been completely outmaneuvered, the mercenaries stand paralyzed by the weight of the hostage situation. Beneath his calm exterior lies a razor-sharp mind, calculating every move to ensure absolute dominance. The veteran leader demands to know if this dangerous stranger truly came only to negotiate. With cold composure, the mysterious warrior requests a single moment to lay bare his true intentions. Gathered around the flickering flames, the tense adversaries prepare to hear a proposal that could alter their fates. Standing in the shadows of the dark forest, Gorls delivers a chilling warning to those who dare pursue his tracks. Unfazed by the threat, the veteran mercenary captain declares their mission to eliminate the monstrous threat plaguing the region. With eyes burning with ancient hatred, Gorls vows that his crusade of vengeance against humanity will never cease. Recognizing the goblin's intelligence, the captain realizes that words alone will not resolve this deadly confrontation. With a hardened gaze, the veteran captain prepares for the inevitable clash of steel. Gorls issues one final chilling offer of mercy, urging them to flee before the dark forest claims their lives. A cold ultimatum is delivered in the quiet forest, giving the invaders one final week to flee before absolute ruin descends. With a grim gaze, he offers his last courtesy, warning that no further mercy will be granted to those who stay. In the quiet before the storm, a silent watcher awakens, eyes burning with a dark, unyielding resolve. Driven by primal hunger, a young soul clings to survival, oblivious to the impending chaos. A lingering dread grips her heart as she senses a dangerous shadow approaching from the darkness. A cold blade stands silent, a grim monument to a promise of absolute retribution. With absolute resolve, a hand claims the steel, ready to carve a path of blood and vengeance. Two worlds collide in the shadows as a desperate protector prepares to face the ultimate test of survival. A grim decree manifests from the void, demanding a sacrifice of blood to awaken her dormant power. Under the cover of a quiet night, the seasoned mercenaries set up camp, unaware of the dark shadows creeping closer. A sudden presence shatters the silence, catching the companions completely off guard as danger looms closer. Hidden in the cold shadows, lethal predators lock their sights onto the camp, preparing to strike with ruthless precision. With sinister intent, the hidden hunters plot their opening moves, their dark whispers sealing the fate of their unsuspecting prey. As the signal is given, the executioner prepares to unleash a sudden, merciless storm upon the camp. A sudden presence shatters the quiet forest, forcing the wary sentries to raise their guard in silent alarm. Out of the misty shadows, a solitary warrior emerges, his chilling presence freezing the hunters in their tracks. Standing before the crackling campfire, the mysterious traveler delivers a chilling warning, offering a single chance to avoid a futile death. With cold authority, the Goblin Master issues a strict ultimatum, demanding they abandon this territory within 1 week. If they choose submission, a white flag must rise before the 5th night, sealing their pact in the quiet dark. A grim warning echoes through the trees, promising absolute ruin should their paths cross once more. A desperate plea for peace lingers in the shadows, hoping to avert the impending tragedy that awaits them all. Having delivered his chilling warning, the Goblin chieftain turns back into the shadows, leaving his enemies to ponder their fate. Stunned by the beast's impossible words, the veteran commander stands frozen as the weight of the ultimatum sinks in. As the monstrous warrior melts back into the dark forest, the mercenaries realize they are dealing with no ordinary beast. Hidden in the shadows, the spying scouts tremble in sheer disbelief at the terrifying negotiation they just witnessed. The horrifying truth shatters their minds as they realize a mere goblin can speak the complex tongue of humans. Realizing they are completely out of their depth, the scouts decide to retreat and report this terrifying anomaly. Deep within the quiet cavern, a young goblin child eats in peace, completely oblivious to the darkness outside. Jang Ha-yeon watches the innocent creature, her heart heavy with the burdens of her own survival. With a hidden blade in hand, she stands torn between her fatting humanity and the primal urge to survive. The heavy footsteps of the clan master echo through the stone halls as his loyal warriors chant his name. With a silent nod, Gorls acknowledges his tribe, his mind focused on the looming storm ahead. Returning to his sanctuary, the chieftain finds his human captive in a highly unexpected situation. Stunned by the bizarre scene before him, Gorls demands to know what she is doing with his kin. Unfazed by the beast before her, she welcomes her savior, wielding a lethal blade not for blood but for a rare moment of grace. Gorls watches in silent exasperation as the young goblin child eagerly devours the dirty fruit peels. Starring at the bizarre scene, Gorls marvels at how quickly the human captive has adapted to her monstrous companions. Gorls delivers a cold warning, advising her not to get attached to anyone in this unforgiving world. Dismissing his stern warning with a warm smile, Jang Ha-yeon continues to cradle the innocent child. Left speechless by her stubborn warmth, Gorls can only watch as she gently cares for his kin. High above the stone fortress, the quiet facade of the guard unit masks the corruption brewing deep within its walls. Within the tax division, a web of greed is spun as the corrupt guards prepare their next deceptive scheme. With a single stroke of a pen, the budget is forged to line their own pockets with stolen wealth. The subordinate presents the fabricated request, waiting for his master's ultimate approval to seal their treasonous plot. A wicked grin spreads across Kim Han-jeol's face as he plots to inflate the budget for personal gain. The older advisor warns of the risks, questioning if they should properly account for their dealings with the Ember Chasers. With chilling confidence, Kim Han-jeol reveals he has already dispatched assassins to silence the mercenary squad. With a sinister grin, the corrupt leader relies on his shadow assassins to silence any who dare oppose him. The heavy wooden door creaks open, signaling the return of those sent into the dark. A tense report breaks the silence of the chamber as the assassins return from their deadly hunt. Arrogance drips from his tongue as he demands proof of the slaughter before parting with his gold. A cold sweat breaks as the messenger delivers the unthinkable news of their failure. Fury consumes the corrupt commander as he demands to know what went wrong in the shadows. But far above the schemes of men, the storm gathers under a vast, unyielding sky. 4 days of agonizing silence pass beneath the cold crescent moon, with no sign of the legendary mercenaries on their trail. Gorls waits in the quiet shadows, wondering if his enemies have truly chosen to accept his terms. The weight of leadership presses heavily on the goblin chieftain as he contemplates their next move. With a sharp, piercing gaze, he prepares to venture out and verify if a white flag has been planted. Deep within the cavern, a rare moment of innocence unfolds as a goblin child clings affectionately to Jang Ha-yeon. Stepping out into the cold night, Gorls commands her to stop teaching the young monster human words. From the shadows, Mev watches her champion with absolute devotion, her heart racing at his formidable presence. Desperate to stop him, Mev calls out as Gorls prepares to venture into the dangerous night alone. Mev stares in disbelief, questioning where her champion is heading in the dead of night. Under the cold glow of the crescent moon, the silent forest harbors a creeping, deadly tension. Gorls stalks through the dark forest, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of his pursuers. Hoping to avoid a needless clash with the Ember Chasers, the Goblin Master searches for a sign of peace. Suddenly, a white flag flutters in the wind, signaling that his terms of peace have been accepted. With his terms met, a dark resolve ignites within his eyes as he prepares for the next phase of his grand design. Deep within the rain-slicked woods, Gorls stands face to face with the human hunters waiting in the shadows. The mercenaries stare in utter disbelief as the legendary beast stands before them, speaking the tongue of men. Unfazed by their presence, the goblin chieftain demands to know the identity of these foolish intruders. Revealing themselves as the 13th Guard Detachment, they boast of the bounty placed upon his head. With a sinister grin, the hunter draws his steel, promising to cripple the beast before claiming his prize. Blinded by greed, the human soldiers charge forward, completely unaware of the monstrous wrath they are about to unleash. With a cold glare, Gorls draws his blades, preparing to unleash a merciless storm upon the arrogant human hunters. Blinded by greed, a human mercenary charges forward, unleashing a desperate strike to claim the goblin bounty. With supernatural agility, Gorls easily evades the clumsy assault, his movements a blur in the dark forest. The Goblin Master strikes back with deadly precision, carving through the shadows with effortless grace. Steel clashes against steel as Gorls deflects a lethal thrust, shattering his opponent's fragile momentum. Spinning through the chaos, the relentless warrior closes in on his prey, leaving no room for escape. A brutal strike pierces through armor and flesh, silencing the human's arrogance in a sudden spray of crimson. A ruthless strike claims another victim, leaving only blood and cold silence in the wake of the unseen hunter. The human mercenaries stand their ground, weapons drawn as they realize a deadly presence is watching from the shadows. Driven by arrogant pride, the heavy-armored hunter sneers, completely blind to the lethal predator waiting to strike. With a thunderous roar, the brute charges forward, unleashing a devastating blow meant to crush his opponent into dust. Moving with supernatural speed, Gorls slips underneath the crushing strike, preparing to deliver a swift and fatal counter. A flash of cold steel slices through the darkness, crippling the arrogant hunter in a single merciless stroke. Before his prey can even scream, the Goblin Master seals his throat with a blade, claiming absolute dominance over the fallen. A sudden lethal strike pierces the darkness, claiming another victim before they can even scream. Terror paralyzes the lone survivor as he watches his comrade fall to an unseen, relentless hunter. Standing over his bleeding prey, the cold-eyed warrior prepares to finish the slaughter. Locked in a tense standoff, the survivor stares into the eyes of a monster far superior to any normal beast. Overwhelmed by sheer panic, the terrified mercenary flees blindly into the dark forest to escape his grim fate. Looking back in horror, he curses the terrifying reality of the monster that hunts him from the shadows. With a cold sigh, the silent hunter watches the pathetic escape, entirely unfazed by their desperate struggle. Stepping through the quiet night, the warrior discovers the white flag, realizing too late that a deadly trap has been set. A silent marker is driven deep into the earth, signaling the start of a deadly trap. Before the warrior can react, a sudden shockwave erupts beneath his feet, shattering his composure. Choking through the dust, he faces a blinding beam of energy that slices through the battlefield. Lethal arrows pierce his armor, biting deep into his flesh with merciless precision. Broken and defeated, the warrior collapses into the dirt as the cold grip of death closes in. Clinging to his fading consciousness, he struggles to comprehend the overwhelming power of his unseen foe. High above the carnage, a silent executioner stands poised, her deadly bow still drawn. Staring into the abyss, a chilling realization strikes him as he gazes upon his ultimate doom. With absolute resolve, Mev prepares to end the conflict before it can even begin. A silent arrow strikes home, shattering the enemy's confidence in a single, brutal instant. Unleashing her full fury, Mev draws her bow to eliminate any remaining threats. Another foe falls before her relentless assault, their defenses completely shattered. In the heat of battle, a desperate hand grips its weapon, bracing for the final clash. A sudden realization of doom freezes the enemy as they witness her overwhelming power. With fierce determination, the deadly archer prepares to unleash a final, devastating strike. Shock paralyzes the deadly archer as she witnesses a terrifying presence approaching her champion. Stepping into the light, Mev stands firm, ready to face the impending doom alongside her leader. With unwavering devotion, she declares her ultimate vow to shield the one she loves. Drawing her bow with lethal intent, the fierce warrior prepares to unleash a storm of vengeance upon their foes. Under the cold glow of a crescent moon, a silent tension grips the dark forest. Without warning, a sudden devastating strike erupts, catching the goblin master completely off guard. Stunned by the unexpected assault, Man looks up as the deadly trap is sprung. Sensing her champion's mortal danger, Girl stands firm against the shadows, her voice echoing with primal fury. With eyes burning with unyielding resolve, she vows to shield the one she loves from the impending doom. 2 days prior, the seeds of this deadly confrontation were sown deep within the human fortress. Bound in heavy iron, their freedom is stripped away as they face the ultimate test of survival. Locked in a tense standoff, the unlikely allies sit in silence, awaiting their grim fate. The silence is shattered as a seasoned mercenary steps from the shadows, cornering his prey. A mocking captor sneers at his prisoners, accusing the legendary mercenaries of ultimate betrayal. Defiant even in captivity, the fierce warrior fiercely rejects the venomous accusations of her tormentor. With burning conviction, she denies any unholy alliance with the monstrous forces of the wild. The smug captor plays his psychological games, twisting the truth to break her iron resolve. A grim revelation exposes the ultimate sacrifice of their beloved elder, bound and beaten in cold iron. Overwhelmed by bitter grief, she curses the tragic fate of the one who sacrificed everything for their survival. With a sinister offer of freedom, the captor prepares to unleash his next deceptive scheme. The heavy chains of false captivity fall, marking the start of a treacherous interrogation. Confronted with the sudden arrest of their beloved elder, the mercenaries demand immediate answers. With a wicked smirk, the corrupt Captain Kim Hanjeol reveals a fabricated document of high treason. He smugly lays out the false charges of collusion, trapping the mercenaries in a desperate corner. Unable to contain her boiling rage, Hangyom violently slams the table, fiercely denying the fabricated lies. Kim Hanjeol mockingly urges her to stay calm, thoroughly enjoying the psychological torment he inflicts. With a swift snatch, the corrupt captain reminds them that their lives hang entirely on his whims. Trapped in a web of corrupt lies, Hangyom and her companion demand to know the price of their beloved leader's freedom. With a chilling grin, the corrupt captain demands the impossible, twisting their desperation into a deadly game. Shock paralyzes the mercenaries as the sinister reality of his demands settles heavily upon their shoulders. Kim Hanjeol lays bare his treacherous terms, forcing them to choose between a suicidal hunt or their elder's execution. A sinister ultimatum is delivered, demanding the head of the legendary Goblin chieftain in exchange for their salvation. With burning resolve, Hangyom accepts the deadly challenge, her heart set on rescuing her beloved elder at all costs. The corrupt captain sneers with cold confidence, knowing he has sent his prey directly into a fatal trap. With a mocking sneer, the human archer draws his bow, ready to strike down the goblin's companion. A blazing arrow tears through the dark forest, carrying a lethal promise of swift death. With supernatural reflexes, Mev effortlessly evades the fiery projectile, her eyes locked onto her prey. Unleashing a relentless storm of glowing arrows, the goblin archer turns the tide of battle in an instant. Desperately dodging the incoming barrage, the human archer struggles to survive Mev's overwhelming speed. Trembling behind a tree, the human archer realizes the terrifying gap in their marksman skills. From the shadows, Gorls warns Mev of hidden reinforcements lurking nearby. With a confident grin, Mev assures her companion that their elite forces are already on the way. An ominous horn echoes through the dark forest, shattering the silence and sending chills down the warrior's spine. With a fierce battle cry, the vanguard of the Blood Dagger clan raises his weapon, ready to unleash absolute carnage. Driven by savage bloodlust, the monstrous horde charges forward, their thunderous footsteps shaking the very earth. Like a relentless plague of green and steel, the goblin army marches toward the human outpost to claim their prize. Hiding in the shadows, Jang Hyeon curses her misfortune as the terrifying army approaches her position. A sudden spark ignites the darkness as a lethal explosive is prepared to halt the advancing horde. The deadly projectile hurtles through the air, carrying a promise of fiery devastation to anyone in its path. Terror paralyzes the young archer as she realizes the explosive is heading directly toward her hiding spot. Choking smoke fills the battlefield as the monstrous horde struggles to breathe amidst the chaotic aftermath of the blast. With their forces overwhelmed, he desperately restrains Hongyeom from charging blindly into certain death. Tempers flare in the heat of defeat as he demands she prioritize survival over a suicidal rescue mission. Cast in bitter regret, Hongyeom looks back at the battlefield, forced to abandon the elder to the cruel enemy. Under the cover of the dense forest, the remaining survivors flee, leaving behind only the shadows of defeat. Roars of absolute triumph shake the valley as the Blood Dagger clan celebrates a decisive victory over the fleeing humans. Desperate to save her fallen champion, Mev pleads with the wounded Gorls to hold on as she prepares to carry him to safety. High above the desolate wilderness, a silent stone sanctuary stands as their only refuge from the relentless hunters closing in. Agonizing pain consumes the goblin warrior as he struggles to endure the brutal aftermath of their desperate escape. Watching his silent torment, the concerned maiden questions if his monstrous form can withstand the devastating toll of his injuries. Clinging to his fatting strength, Gorls bitterly curses the cruel reality of a monstrous rebirth that offers no relief from pain. Laying broken in the dim light of their sanctuary, the warrior prepares for the long, painful road of recovery. With the infamous Ember Chasers hunting his trail, Gorls realizes that their final bloody confrontation is now entirely inevitable. Haunted by his past, Gorls reflects on the tragic fates of those he hoped would survive this cruel world. Mev rushes to his side, offering a mysterious family elixir to heal her wounded champion. Skeptical of her cure, Gorls realizes the supposed medicine smells suspiciously like cheap whiskey. Desperate to numb the agonizing pain, the warrior chugs the mysterious liquid, urged on by his loyal archer. The burning liquid hits his throat, causing him to violently spit out the putrid concoction in absolute shock. Furious and choking, Gorls demands to know what poison she actually gave him as Mev frantically explains her blunder, stealing his resolve. Gorls vows to recover his strength before unleashing absolute vengeance upon his enemies. Desperate to heal his mortal wounds, Gorls chugs the burning elixir, pouring the remaining drops directly onto his shattered chest. Memories of a gentler past resurface, recalling a time when compassion was shared freely among companions in a world not yet broken. True protectors seek no compensation, passing on the torch of hope to those who might one day pay it forward. With a humble bow, the young warrior vows never to forget the profound grace bestowed upon him by a noble elder. A warm laughter echoes through the cold mountains, cementing an alliance forged in the spirit of mutual survival. Suddenly the dream shatters as Gorls gasps back to consciousness, his burning gaze reignited with a relentless drive to survive. Awakening from the brink of death, Gorls opens his eyes to find his devoted companion tending to his healed wounds. Overcome with relief, Mev embraces her champion, her fierce devotion shining through the darkness of their brutal world. Gently binding his shattered chest, she vows to shield his broken body from the relentless storms of war. As a sudden silence falls between them, the fierce archer turns to her master, completely unaware of what lies ahead. In a sudden, breathtaking moment of passion, Gorls claims her lips, shattering her fierce composure in an instant. Pulling her into a deep, desperate embrace, the monstrous warrior surrenders to the rare warmth of an unspoken vow. As the boundaries of restraint dissolve, a silent surrender unfolds in the dim, flickering shadows of their sanctuary. Lost in a haze of overwhelming emotion, her breath hitches as the world outside fades into absolute nothingness. With primal instinct taking hold, his touch claims her completely, sealing their unspoken bond in a passionate embrace. Stripped of all armor and pretense, their past armor falls away, leaving only raw desire in the dark. Gazing down at his devoted companion, the chieftain finds a rare moment of peace in her shining eyes. A soft promise whispers in the dark, offering a gentle touch before the storm of passion consumes them both. Her eyes widen in sudden, breathless shock as the physical reality of his embrace takes hold. Locked in a fierce, breathless union, the raw intensity of their bond ignites a fire that cannot be quenched. Surrendering entirely to the overwhelming waves of pleasure, her cries echo softly through the silent stone chamber. As the quiet of the aftermath descends, a lingering shadow of destiny returns to the chieftain's eyes. Surrendering to the overwhelming heat of the moment, she reaches out, desperate to lose herself in his embrace. In the quiet sanctuary of the shadows, their souls entwine as she clings to her champion with fierce devotion. Even the battle-hardened chieftain cannot escape the raw intensity of her burning love. As the sun dips below the horizon, a fragile peace settles over the rugged wilderness. Deep within the dark woods, a desperate human struggles to find his way, consumed by the creeping dread of the forest. Their path to survival was instantly shattered when their guide fell to a brutal, unseen trap. Bitter resentment boils over as he curses the treacherous lies that led them directly into this living nightmare. But the silence of the forest is suddenly shattered by the cold whistle of incoming steel. A brutal blow shatters the hunter's skull, sending him crashing into the dirt with a sickening crack. Clinging to the remnants of his life, the fallen hunter groans in agonizing pain as blood pools upon his brow. His eyes snap open in sheer terror as a chilling realization freezes his very soul. From the shadows, the savage goblin scouts loom over their prey, speaking in their guttural tongue of a fleeing enemy. With a cold blade pressed against his throat, the scouts prepare to bind their helpless captive. With their prize secured, the hunters prepare to drag him back to the terrifying domain of Chief Gorls. Held captive before the ruined watchtower, the broken soldier kneels at the mercy of his green-skinned captors. A cold voice breaks the silence, compelling the terrified captive to look up into the eyes of his interrogator. High above the stone floor, the merciless leader sits enthroned, calculating the exact worth of his prisoner's remaining breath. With a sneer of utter contempt, he issues a brutal ultimatum: prove useful or become meat for the horde. Trembling under the suffocating threat of death, the broken human eagerly nods in desperate submission. Reasoning through the enemy's panicked retreat, the commander deduces that their comrade's hidden rendezvous point is dangerously close. As the dark truth dawns upon him, the captive recoils in horror, dreading the impending slaughter of his surviving allies. A cold, menacing gaze pierces through the darkness as the green-skinned master demands immediate answers. Bound and helpless before the merciless horde, the captive human trembles, his spirit completely crushed. With a trembling breath, the terrified prisoner prepares to confess the bitter truth of their failure. Paralyzed by sheer horror, the captive stares into the abyss, realizing salvation is far beyond his reach. High above the battlements, a heavy wooden structure groans under the suffocating tension of impending carnage. In absolute silence, a deadly shadow glides through the darkness, slipping past every defense unnoticed. Covered in fresh blood, the lethal executioner steps forth, earning the chieftain's ultimate praise. Blood drips upon the cold earth as the hidden shadows are mercilessly wiped out in absolute slaughter. Yet their brutal task remains unfinished, and a far darker scheme begins to take shape. With cold authority, the commander orders the sole survivor to spread the horrifying truth of this massacre. Panic erupts among the human ranks as a relentless tide of green-skinned monsters tears through their defenses. But a final sinister message must be delivered before the shadows claim their ultimate prize. Trembling in absolute horror, the soldier gazes at the bloody evidence left in his hands. Bound by an unyielding resolve, he vows to make the world witness the bloody truth of their suffering. A murderous edge gleams in the shadows, heralding the cruel fate that awaits every trespasser. Desperate footsteps echo through the gloom as hidden survivors rush headlong into the darkness. Stifling their ragged breath in the shadows, they pray the cold gaze of death passes them by. A crushing shockwave shatters the defense, hurling the red-haired warrior violently to the stone floor. Gritting her teeth against the searing agony, the fallen fighter refuses to succumb to defeat. A silent executioner steps through the threshold, casting a long shadow of inescapable doom. With lightning speed, Gorls deflects the incoming blade, shattering his opponent's assault in a flash of sparks. Steel is drawn with lethal precision as the struggle intensifies. Cold steel pierces deep, tearing through flesh as screams of pain echo through the night. Agony consumes her, her desperate cries echoing through the bloody battlefield. Disarmed and broken, the weapon falls as strength completely fails. Gorls strikes with cold resolve, surprising his opponent before she can react. A chilling hope lingers in the silence of the aftermath. Gorls looks down at Mev, questioning if she possesses the strength to endure. Across the distant hills, the winds of fate begin to shift. Surrounded by the goblin tribe, Jang Hyeon finds herself trapped in a world of monsters. A sudden shock catches her off guard, leaving her frozen in sheer disbelief. Returning to the subterranean stronghold, Gorls steps into the quiet shadows where his kin await. Jang Hyeon greets the return master, holding a goblin child close in the dim cavern light. A sudden halt breaks the quiet passage as Mev catches sight of her returned champion. A playful smirk glints across the archer's face as mischief sparks within her sharp eyes. Bound in silent confusion, the human captive watches in bewilderment as Mev scuttles off with wild laughter. The ancient shaman Morksul acknowledges the warrior, his heavy voice cutting through the damp stone halls. Kneeling before the throne of power, Gorls presents his ambitious plan to strike at the heart of human forces. With burning conviction in his eyes, Gorls vows to completely obliterate the human guard post. Lord Morksul leans forward, probing into the status of the wounds sustained in the previous brutal battle. Assuring the shaman of his complete recovery, Gorls confirms the upcoming offensive remains entirely on schedule. Lord Morksul absorbs the report in quiet contemplation, his ancient gaze fixed upon the ambitious warrior. Reminding Gorls of his newfound status, Morksul questions why the master of the Blood Dagger clan still kneels before him. With unwavering devotion, Gorls declares his roots within the Dark Moon clan will never be forgotten. Looking up with profound sincerity, the warrior vows to always honor the elder who guided his resurgence. Deeply moved by such unyielding respect, Lord Morksul nods in solemn approval of his champion. A heavy silence settles as the ancient shaman braces his hand upon stone, preparing to seal their pact. With glowing eyes of ancient fury, Lord Morksul officially pledges an elite vanguard to reinforce the brutal strike. Lord Morksul's deadly shaman squad is deployed, throwing the warrior into absolute shock at the elder's overwhelming favor. Overwhelmed with profound reverence, Gorls bows low, offering his boundless gratitude to the ancient shaman. Meanwhile, far across the region, a heavy quiet settles over the heavily fortified human outpost under a fading sun. Heavy footsteps echo through the cold corridors as a legendary veteran is marched forward under heavy guard. Brought before his interrogators, the silent master takes his seat, bracing for whatever cold fate awaits him. Addressed by his formidable title, the captive warrior coldly inquires if the day of his final execution has at last arrived. A chilling command echoes through the room as the messenger instructs the captive veteran to inspect the mystery chest before him. With quiet hesitation, the old warrior reaches down, unaware of the grim nightmare waiting beneath the lid. A sudden, paralyzing horror strikes his soul as his eyes lock onto the gruesome contents. Reeling in absolute terror, he recoils from the table, his chair crashing to the floor as agony takes hold. Resting within the cold wood are the bloody tokens of his fallen allies, a merciless declaration of total slaughter. Shaken to his core, he stammers in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend the horrifying reality before him. Bound in heavy iron chains, his hands quake violently as an overwhelming wave of grief threatens to consume him, crushed beneath the unbearable weight of loss. The broken master falls to his knees, weeping for his butchered companions. Demanding answers, the guard looms over the broken old man, confronting him with the horrific truth of the goblin's relentless onslaught. Offering false aid, the smug officer taunts the legendary swordsman of Twilight, only to be met with a chilling question of deep suspicion. Heavy chains rattle as the old warrior speaks of a fragile pact, realizing the delicate balance of survival has been completely shattered. A terrifying fury ignites within the old master as he realizes his own people used innocent children as cruel bait for a deadly monster hunt. Unbridled rage erupts as the legendary swordsman towers over the terrified guard, roaring in agony for the lives of the innocent. Shaken to his core by the old warrior's terrifying wrath, the cowardly officer frantically shrieks for guards to drag the prisoner away. Seizing the old warrior from behind, the guard bellows in fury, attempting to restrain the legendary swordsman. But a tiger never yields to mere sheep, and the old master's silence masks a deadly storm about to erupt. With effortless mastery, he flips his attacker through the air, shattering the stone floor with a devastating slam. Leaving no room for recovery, he delivers a ruthless follow-up strike to crush any remaining defiance. Watching from the shadows, a terrified soldier trembles in horror as the terrifying reality of the master's power unfolds. Driven by blind panic, another guard draws his blade and charges, desperately screaming at the unstoppable veteran. In a fraction of a second, cold steel slips from its sheath, flashing with lethal intention. A single flash of crimson light slices through the air, severing the soldier's head before his blade can even descend. Terrified by the ruthless slaughter, the trembling guard gasps in pure horror as his commander falls. Looming with suffocating pressure, Gorls steps forward to interrogate the broken survivor. Under the pale crescent moon, a shadowy raven soars across the night sky, carrying urgent tidings to the waiting legion. With dark magic surging around him, Shaman Squad leader Nokbur announces that their forces stand ready for total war. Ordering his scouts to hold their positions, Gorls steps into the shadowy wild alone to survey the enemy line. Moving with lightning speed, a silent scout dashes across the rugged terrain, leaving only wind in his wake. A sudden noise shatters the stillness, halting the scout as sharp instincts ignite a surge of alarm. Skidding to a sudden halt, he digs his heels into the dust as an ominous heat fills the air. Staring up into the glowing dusk, shock grips the scout as the sky turns into a blazing sea of crimson ash. Before a towering fortress engulfed in roaring infernos, an unexpected figure emerges from the flames to deliver a chilling welcome. Amidst the roaring inferno, Gorls stands silent, his sharp gaze fixed upon the burning ruins. A formidable shadow looms through the ash, unfazed by the devastation consuming the stronghold. Without a hint of fear, the strange warrior casually downs his drink while gripping a terrified captive. As the final drop drains from the flask, an ominous silence settles over the scorched earth. Directing his gaze forward, the warrior declares he has been waiting for the infamous talking goblin. Burning with unyielding fury, the battle-hardened veteran grips his blade, demanding a final reckoning.